Okay, all set.
Okay, we can open up the meeting. Due to the increased concerns surrounding coronavirus pandemic, this meeting will remain closed to the public. There are no scheduled hearings and there will be no public input portion. Video and audio of this meeting will be aired on Comcast Local TV 9. The recording of this meeting will also be posted on the Town of Dayton YouTube channel. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing? I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag of the United States of America
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
Under God,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
with liberty
and justice for all. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I request a moment of silence for the passing of the following Dayton residents. Albertine Dwyer. Mrs. Dwyer was the nurse at Dayton Rehoboth for many years, and she retired from DR. Manuel and Mariana Elizardo. This was aunt and uncle to our town clerk, Sue Medeiros. Margaret Costa. William O'Connell. Adele Rose. For many years, Adele Rose was the postmistress at the Dayton Post Office. I request a moment of silence in honor of them and also a moment of silence in memory of Ryan Hazel. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on. You gotta get down, Kat. Is Tom Ferry here, I guess? We have a scheduled appointment for 6:10 on road closure and discuss holding an auction of surplus items. Mr. Ferry, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. I checked in with Gil Bain, who's overseeing the whole Aggie School project down in Center Street. They're not the actual people doing the road work, but they oversee everything. Checked with them late this afternoon. Everything's going well. This week would be ample time. They will be done with the need for the road closure. There'll still be some disruption lane closures next week, intermittent, tying up a couple of houses. They are going to charge the water line this week and sanitize it. And it needs so much time period to test correctly before it's online to the houses. So that's where they are with that. They are just a little bit ahead of schedule on that tie-in, which is great. I'd like to segue that into my next comment. It's not the auction, but the sign that's down there, I'd like to move it tomorrow. And that's, I think everyone has plenty notice of that road closure. I think they can survive without that sign for Friday, unless you guys think otherwise. But tentatively, weather permitting, we're gonna pave Tremont Street next week. So I wanna move that sign in that area so people can start seeing the need for disruption in traffic over there. So it looks like Wednesday, Thursday is 40% chance of showers those days. And we might be able to pull that off. Unless you want me to leave that sign there until the weekend at the Center Street.
What's the board's opinion on it? Anybody have any concerns about that?
Just do what you have to do, Tom. You're the guy.
Okay. One more thing before the auction, if I may. As we know, a lot more people are home. Good weather's here. They're venturing out. Our town was never built for a lot of pedestrians or sidewalks. Moving forward, we have to entertain sidewalks, but we're not there yet. We've got to remind people shouldn't be just walking anywhere aimlessly. Should be walking towards the traffic, single file. Our roads are not wide. There's no sidewalks. It's not all the driver's responsibility. It's the pedestrians also. I've had people call me, stop me, and it's the nature of the beast. We all got to work together on this.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry, the Tremont Street paving was going to be Monday and Tuesday of next week?
Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Monday it's raining pretty good. Tuesday it's finishing.
So Wednesday and Thursday next week. Okay,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Ferry, What part of Tremont Street are you paving? I'm sorry.
From Forest to Williams, where I changed that culvert. I changed 2 culverts on that section, and needs to be paved.
That whole
I wanted to
stretch?
pave it last year,
Mhm.
but it's got to get going.
The whole stretch, Mr. Ferry?
Only from Forest Street to Williams.
Forest to Williams. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, the problem is there's a lot of cut through traffic from the Pine Street area trying to get to 44. So the paving company knows about it. We've got to figure that out. So I want to get that sign up as quick as we can so everyone's on
Yep.
board.
Yeah, I understand. I support that, Mr. Ferry. Thank you.
As far as the auction, as you know, we have several vehicles and at least 1 mower. And I think we still got a trailer that didn't sell in the last auction. All 3 of them vehicles will start and run probably with a jump. Some don't have brakes or nothing like that, but I think the value is worth more if we try to get rid of it sooner than later. If it just sits there, it's going to deteriorate. Mallory instructed me to get together with Jim to do a little investigation, how to suggest to get rid of them. It's been a little problematic week, so me and Jim haven't done that yet. We'd like to entertain the local vendors on the auction rather than the last one, but we're going to report back to you as soon as we can on that. Just giving you a heads up on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's, yeah, I hit all 4 points. So
Very efficient, Tom.
Tom, what is that large yellow piece of equipment right near the fence at the transfer station?
we acquired that through the military surplus for in the event that we have some very large storms that will push the snow drifts and whatnot. Fortunately, we haven't entertained that problem for a while, but it failed inspection. That's why it's up for surplus. I don't think we want to
So-
put money into it.
Is it considered a truck?
Yes,
Okay,
that's actually not an old truck. It's a common truck, mostly used on airports and stuff like that.
okay, thank you.
Western part of our state, they put snow blowers on them and they use them on the streets also.
I just want to tell you, I had some feedback from some residents on Center Street, and for the most part, Center Street East, they were very happy that with the construction, it has not been disruptive. You know, they felt that it has been handled very well. So, thank you.
Pass
Thank you,
that
Mr.
along.
Ferry.
Before
you.
you go, Mr. Ferry, I know you're not here in any capacity as a Lion, but a lot of people appreciate the signs outside of Old Town Hall. So if you could pass on to your fellow Lions that we appreciate that, especially during this time.
I will.
Thank you.
Before I sign off, I'm just questioning Nancy, should I sign off? Because later in the agenda, we're going to be speaking about Miller's Lane. Should I hang on to that?
No, you probably, well, Mr. Chairman, can we take that one out of order so that Mr. Ferry doesn't have to sit through the whole thing?
I don't see why not. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we take agenda item 8C out of order.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The ayes have it. Miller's Lane.
Mr. Chairman, Town Council completed the order of taking. I just want to read the first and last page, not all the stuff in between, because it's all meets and bounds. So just so that the public
Okay.
understands what we're doing here. This is a standard order of taking that is required to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds that shows the action the town of Dayton actually took relative to the reconstruction of Miller's Lane and the drainage project and the property that we acquired on behalf of the town. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Bristol SS, Town of Dayton, order of taking, Miller's Lane layout and improvements. Whereas at the annual town meeting held on the 3rd day of June 2019, under warrant article 30 thereof, the inhabitants of the town of Dayton voted to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take by eminent domain certain parcels of land and easements to improve the public way known as Miller's Lane. And whereas the Board of Selectmen has caused This is not the correct one. That reference to eminent domain was changed because we didn't use eminent domain. We
Right.
actually negotiated settlements and paid for everything. Eminent domain would have meant we'd have taken legal action against the owners. We didn't do that. And I had spoken to Matt and he rewrote that.
Hold on, Nancy, I think I have all of these in my email.
Yeah, and I'm gonna look to see
Chairman
if I,
Pacheco, would you be able to read the announcements?
Yes.
And I will look for this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, announcements. The rabies vaccination day has been rescheduled to June 27th at 2 p.m. That's a Saturday. The town election has been rescheduled to Saturday, June 6th, 2020. That's from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the town meeting has been rescheduled to Monday, June 15th, 2020. The town of Dayton Food Bank distribution will be held next on May 16th, 2020, located in the town hall lower level as a drive-through. And I believe, Mr. Ferry, that's at 8 o'clock. Is that correct?
Yes, just for the drive-through, yes. The workers will be there earlier.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I add one announcement to that?
Sure.
This is from the Board of Health. Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day is going to be Saturday, June 13th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And proof of residency is required. There is an event on Facebook and also a flyer on the health department's page of sort of what types of items are allowed, what types of items are not allowed, as well as some other important information. So if you have any other questions about Household Hazardous Waste Day, you can contact the Board of Health at 774-872-0943, or you can always call the main line that will route you to the directory, 508-669-6431. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a popular event.
It is.
This is the other, I don't know what happened to Nancy. She's up from her chair. This is the other one that I had. There were two versions. Selectman Goulart, this is the other one that I had. Does this look like the correct one? It doesn't mention the easements up here.
okay, I just went out and found the one that was in my bag here. Let me, okay.
Why does that one say 2020?
What was that?
Why does that say 2020? The order of taking?
Right here?
Yes.
You're gonna have to do this over again because the first vote in 1953 was not in depth, let's just say.
Okay.
Selectman Goulart?
It didn't
Yeah, I'm
accurately lay the street.
Selectman Goulart, do you, rather than the town administrator share this one, do you just want to read the one that you know is correct verbatim, and then, you know, we can sign it when we're in the office after the vote?
Okay. Sorry about that.
No,
All
no,
right.
it's okay.
So the one I'm looking at, whereas at the annual town meeting held on the 3rd day of June, 2019, under warrant Article 30 thereof, the inhabitants of the town of Dayton voted to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take by purchase or eminent domain certain parcels of land and easements to improve the public way known as Miller's Lane. And whereas the Board of Selectmen has caused the appropriate appraisals to be completed for establishing value of land and easements to be taken and damages that would flow therefrom, if any, and whereas the town has set aside funds sufficient to pay for the land and easements taken for this purpose as required by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 79, And whereas the Board of Selectmen has determined and adjudged the common convenience and necessity required that certain takings in fee simple absolute and certain permanent easements to be taken in certain parcels as described herein in order to improve Miller's Lane and facilities and facilitate safe and efficient travel by residents of the town and by the general public. Now therefore, the Board of Selectmen of the town of Dayton, being duly elected, qualified, and acting as such, having first complied with all preliminary requirements prescribed by the applicable laws of the Commonwealth, under and by virtue of the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 79, and in accordance with the vote of the aforesaid town meeting, and by virtue of every other power and authority hereto enabling, does hereby take by purchase the land and easements hereinafter described, all shown on a plan of land consisting of 2 sheets and entitled Layout on an Acceptance Plan, Miller's Lane in Dayton, Mass, Bristol County, laid out as a town highway by the Board of Selectmen, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, dated February 22nd, 2019, prepared by John W. Delano and Associates Incorporated, said plan of land to be recorded herewith. The next few pages describes all the meets and bounds, every parcel that is included in this taking. To the final page after the last parcel is listed. There were 15 parcels. I should say there are 15 parcels, plus there are 2 easements listed in this document. This is all of what the Board of Selectmen will be acting on. The above described roadway easement contains, oh, that's the last one, forget that. For damages sustained by the owners in their property by reason of the aforesaid takings, and in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 79, Section 6, as amended, awards are made and are more fully described in Schedule A, which is attached hereto and made a part hereof by reference. The town of Dayton reserves the right to amend the awards at any time prior to payment thereof for good cause as shown. And I will just comment, all of the awards, all of the payments have been made to the property owners, so we don't have any amendments. This order of taking is to be filed and recorded within 30 days hereafter with the Bristol County Northern District Registry of Deeds, all as required by the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 79. Let's see. All property owners whose property has been the subject of this order of taking were notified in writing of this order, of the purpose of the order, of the amount of damages awarded for the order of taking, of the time and place which payment therefore was obtained. Let's see. If no damages were awarded, the time within which they could petition for damages and the time within such petition shall be filed with the Superior Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, County of Bristol. Everyone we met with agreed in advance to accept the appraised value that we presented, and every property owner signed an agreement indicating that by accepting the payment, all claims are settled in full. In witness, and that's just a comment I made, in witness whereof, the undersigned have executed this order of taking this 13th day of May, 2020, in their capacity as selectmen of the town of Dayton. Town of Dayton Board of Selectmen, and then there are the 3 signature pages. So I will make a motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the order of taking.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I just want to make a comment. I want to thank Mrs. Goulart as well as Mr. Ferry for all the hard work that you two have done on this project. It's been a long project. A lot of work has been involved, and appreciate the work that you guys have done. So, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that Mr. Delano will provide the Mylar copies that we need to be recorded. And I had spoken to Karen about the payments that we need to make. So we will make sure that this gets taken care of within the 30 days. And this should forever put to rest any concerns about the status of Miller's Lane from Anderson Drive to the Swansea Town Line.
Mr. Scullott, do we know if the Registry of Deeds is still open? Or is it, I believe it's closed.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
find out how we can send in this payment, or if they have a Dropbox, or maybe what we'll do is leave it with Attorney Gay, and maybe they have a way of getting getting things done. I'll put it that way.
I think they're
Thank
operating
you.
electronically, like you can submit things electronically, but we'll look into that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Thanks, Tom.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. Good evening. So sorry, I'm flipping back and forth to my agenda. We created a reopening task force under the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and we've gotten started with how we would go about reopening our facilities to employees, all of our employees, so we can be fully staffed again, and the public. We are focused obviously on the employees because you need them first. And so we have some departments that are very easily, it's easy. You can do split shifts. They can separate very, very easily with 6 feet between them in certain spaces. Like the building department can easily separate themselves because I think they're probably 15 feet away from each other on a regular day. There are other departments that are obviously a little bit more intricate and a little bit more difficult. So we are meeting with each of them, those difficult ones. We had a meeting today with the folks at Prime Time, and something that came up was, you know, they're still ultimately suspending that Prime Time program because it's just simply not safe to have those kinds of programs open right now. But we talked about potentially, not everyone loved this idea, so it still needs to be talked about, but we talked about potentially moving the other Council on Aging employees so that all 3 of them could work together in one space. It'd be at the Prime Time facility. It's large. There's lots of space between them, and nobody would be sharing a workspace or being encountering anybody else's, I don't want to say this, but germs, you know, and if we follow the protocols, they should be all set. So that's a work in progress. And again, some departments are much easier than others. We've also developed some standard operating procedures. They're in draft form, and I did send those over to you. If you have any comments or any feedback, I'd gladly take it. But we feel that we've covered all of our bases. We have instructed, well, we will instruct because they're still in draft, that everybody wears a mask, everybody stays 6 feet apart. You, before and after your work shift, you wipe down your station. We'll provide the wipes. We're going to put in hand sanitizer everywhere, like for the public, for people at their workstations. And when you see it, just use it. Like if you just see it, just use it. Wash your hands frequently, practice good hygiene. The standard operating procedures also list out what the employer is going to do. So it puts everybody on the same page. And the intent is if you agree to them, that we would send them out to every department, every person, every employee. Specifically. And then I also, through the help of Karen, we printed out some materials from the Department of Public Health that just talk about it. They're great graphics. They talk about reopening the phases that the governor's working on. They talk about quarantining yourself, isolating, what to look for, and some other materials that we would send out in one package and make sure that each employee was in receipt of that. There's also partitions. We've purchased some plastic partitions to go at all the counters so that when members of the public come in and interface with our employees, there's a barrier between them, and then in some cases a barrier between employees when we can't separate, just for added security, I guess. There's more. We're really focused on it. We're really trying to think of all the different creative ways that we can still open our services. But at the end of the day, we're not going to do it if it's not safe. So I'm not expecting that we would be ready on May 18th. I've discussed with Jim Aguirre, like getting the partitions in and everything. That's supposed to be happening on Friday. But I don't think there's any need to rush because we've maintained a level of service. We've been able to carry on electronically and remotely. Also, as part of our guidance, there will be no meetings. If you have to have an in-person meeting, the only place you can meet is the old town hall meeting space because it's large and you can distance yourself as long as everyone wears masks. But still no more than 10 people. So that would be kind of a intergovernmental meeting. That would just be with our own employees. Do you have any questions before I keep rambling on about this?
Sure. Do you have, are we going to have hand sanitizers as you enter the buildings, which
Yeah.
also be the exits?
Yes, so have you ever seen the standing ones?
Yep.
Yep, so we've got a combination of those and wall ones, and those would be at entrances and at key places like the lower level meeting room.
And are they up now, or we're going to
not
wait
yet.
till Friday?
We don't
And
have
I-
that yet.
Yeah. And I noticed that some members, some employees were concerned about not having hand sanitizers in the bathroom. Is that being corrected as soon as possible? Do you know?
Hand sanitizer in the bathroom or soap?
I thought it was hand sanitizer.
Oh, I thought
So
it was
that's
soap.
fine.
Well, I reached out to Aaron Weirmay, and again, you know, this has been an ongoing issue. We've talked to him about this, so I reached out again that we ensure that. So actually, let's just make sure we're getting the same complaint. The complaint I received was that there was a lack of bathroom in a lack of soap in the lower level bathrooms, and so I did reach out to our cleaning service about that. Additionally, we talked about sanitizer at each station, at everybody's workspace, like a little bottle that everyone would get. We're working on procuring that right now. We think we have a good likelihood of getting it. I have a few bottles right now as well. And then we're also talking about increasing cleaning services, and that's up for discussion tonight as well. I have the, in your packet is
Right.
a breakdown of costs.
So does any other member of the board have any questions about this, about the draft? Or anything that Mrs. Aristine has said?
Oh, hold on, Nancy. Nancy,
I can't hear Nancy.
I'm trying to unmute her. Oh, there we go. Nancy?
Responsibilities of employer.
Yeah.
All common areas and meeting areas are to be regularly cleaned and disinfected at least once a day. Who's going to be responsible for that?
So that's in there as a draft because as part of this discussion, it would be our cleaning service who would be responsible for that. And so that obviously comes with an added cost, and that's broken down in your packet. If you don't want that, we would obviously amend our operating procedures.
I think it's a good idea. I just was concerned about if we were expecting employees to do that.
no.
But I don't think we can.
No,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely. So let's talk about that cost.
What
It should
cost?
be the cost of the cleaning service.
Well, that's on the agenda for later.
Oh, separately. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Hate not having my printed out agenda.
Next is Code Red.
Oh, Code Red, thank you. So the Communications Center, the Board of Health, and Selectmen's office partnered together to roll out an emergency preparedness, to roll out Code Red, which is up now and running. It is an emergency alert system, or a reverse 911, as some people call it. And we are encouraging residents to sign on to that so they can be alerted to all sorts of things going on, not just in a capacity of an emergency. And the Board of Health did send out a card. I'm going to spotlight your video, Nancy, so that people can see that. So
Don't
that
give
is
away if you got it.
a mailer that you, the members of the public, will receive this in the mail. Thank you. And it gives you the instructions, but you can also just go right to the website and it's right there in your face. It says code red, you can't miss it, and it's a pretty simple sign on. You can choose email alerts, phone, you can choose cell phone alerts, landline alerts, all three, however you want to be notified. And so we're asking for you to join on board with that. And the cool thing about this, what I think is the most spectacular about the program, is that it's divided up geographically. So if there's a specific alert in one area, like a bridge closure or something, the alert will go out to that side of town. Anybody that would be affected by that particular emergency. And I thought that was a great thing to have. So I'd like to recognize the chief officer's help on that, and the Board of Health and the Communications Center, who did a lot of research.
We should
Dr. C, do you want to add to this?
No, I think Madam Administrator did a good job, but I do want to highlight, we've had discussions yesterday with the Finance Committee about the the internship program. And I just wanted to highlight that it was one of the interns with the Board of Health, I think, that was really instrumental in the beginning phases of Code Red. So I just wanted to thank Zach Freitas as well.
Thanks. Just to go back to the your first item that you had, Madam Administrator, the concern was that the bathrooms in the basement do not get restocked in hand soap, nor do they have any hand sanitizers. So it's actually both soap and hand sanitizer.
Well, I think they were saying if they're not going to have soap, can you at least have hand sanitizer? So I think I might be wrong, Madam Administrator, but if they're if they're stocking the soap, then we should be okay, right?
It says their concern is that the downstairs bathroom do not get restocked in hand soap, nor do they have hand sanitizers. I think we ought to have both, quite frankly, given the pandemic, but I've noticed myself that sometimes there's not soap in the bathroom downstairs.
This is something that our cleaner is bound to in his contract to provide soap. So he's got to provide the soap. I mean, there's no question about it. Hand sanitizer would be something different, and we could go forward with that. But if everybody is given hand sanitizer at their desk, I don't necessarily want it at the bathroom so I can grow legs and walk away. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. But
well, it's in short supply these days. So,
I mean, I will for what it's worth. For what it's worth, and I'm not. I think we should, the best we can, especially during difficult times, try to accommodate the employees. I will say, in my company in Boston, we do have both. Some people use the hand sanitizer, some people use the soap. Maybe it's a preference. I'm a soap person myself, but if we could look into having both, that would be nice. I know it's in short supply, but maybe we could order in bulk. I don't know.
Well, we're taking care of like this. I call them small bottles, but we have like 16-ounce bottles coming. We have a little bit smaller. I think they're 12-ounce bottles coming, and those would be desk side. And then there's also entrance ones that are stand-up. I don't even know what to call them, columns. And then there's wall ones. And so Todd's working on ordering these through FET funds.
Isn't there a wall one downstairs?
There's only one. Yeah, there should be one.
It was empty when I tried to use it.
It is empty, but I guess what I'm thinking is if it's close enough to where you would leave or enter the bathroom, maybe we don't need to have it in the bathroom, but we could just make sure that those bags that are inside those hand sanitizer wall bins, I don't know what to call them, that those are full.
I'm just trying to visualize where I can't remember.
I know, I don't remember either, but at least if that's stocked.
When you walk in the lower level, as I remember, it's on the right-hand side, and it was empty because I mentioned it to somebody in one of the offices. My other thought is, if you have one outside the meeting room down there, then if you happen to go into the bathroom and, you know, use the soap, whatever, come out, you can also use that before you exit that, enter into the meeting room. And it might be good to have one on the exit from the meeting room because they use that, people use that a lot, the people who work on the food bank. So every time they're coming or going, it's there. That might be another good spot.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm talking wall mounts. I'm not talking a bottle that somebody
Right.
can take home.
Right. No, I understand that.
Okay, let's go to old business discussion on,
Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
sorry.
can I had one question. Were you going to mention anything about the online permitting under town administrator?
Oh, sure, I can. That's another part of our plan here is to really promote electronic services still, even though some parts of the world are opening back up. We were able to pivot quite nicely to a remote platform, and included in that is online permitting. The building commissioner has been discussing this for a long time, and he was waiting on one more piece of the puzzle, which is payment, before he really unleashed it. And because of COVID-19, we're releasing it a little bit early. There's a online permitting button on the homepage, and we're also putting out a story so that people can understand that we have this online permitting ability. It's an easy interface. It's user friendly, and we'll be promoting that for his sector of our organization.
And just
Thank
to
you
add,
for
the
the
only thing
reminder.
you can't do is pay. You
Pay.
still have to,
Drop
pay
off a
they're
payment.
dropped off. Yeah.
They're also going to get their own lockbox. The Old Town Hall is going to get its own lockbox because it's becoming a bit cumbersome. Everything is just so disjointed, and so there's a bit of a lag time. So they're going to get their own lockbox, and we'll start promoting the use of that as well. The thought was to make it large enough that plans could be delivered there, but they'll be working that out. I was just going to ask if can I proceed with these procedures? Is there anything that you'd like to update, change, other than the cleaning service, which still remains a question, but anything, can we go forward?
I didn't personally have any changes. I really feel like any potential changes should be driven by the people who work in the building, who are there, 8 hours a day, if you will. So I'm okay with them as is, and I would expect that as you get feedback or as you speak to the different personnel that you might modify them. So that's
Right.
fine with me.
And they were sent out, just so the public is aware, ahead of this meeting, they were sent out to employees for their feedback.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
very much.
I'm okay with it. You can proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to move ahead with the standard operating procedures as presented tonight. And if there are any major changes, she just lets us know in the future.
Before I second that, Madam Administrator, is it you proceeding or is it the pandemic? I forget the exact
The
pandemic
task force,
response.
the reopening task force. It's us proceeding together, but this is sort of my role of putting everything into a document and sharing it with the employees.
All right, thank you. Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. Old business, discussion on vacation buyout transfer.
So I went back with Chris Laviolette. He did some calculations. I apologize for this document. It's very small. But we broke down so we broke down the employees into people with 2 weeks or less, people with 2 weeks or more, and kind of tried to quantify if we forced everyone that 2-week carryover, which is allowed by right anyway. So we will have to let people do that no matter what. Even in normal times, that wasn't allowed and contracted practice. So if we forced everyone to do 2 weeks, you cut your financial obligation way down. And so that's depicted there on it's $65,028.75. If everyone who had that much vacation time on the books was forced to carry over their 2 weeks. And then of course you can also have people take time now between now and June 30th, and you would lessen your obligation as well. And I do know of at least 2 employees who have planned time off.
So right now, we've allowed them to carry more than 2 weeks, correct? So we would have to, if we change that, we would have to, did we take a vote on that?
Yes.
So we will have to change that based on the information that you provided us. Does anybody have any questions about what's before you?
No, I just appreciate, you know, to make the best decision, I think we all needed the data. So I appreciate the accounting office, in particular, our accountant Laviolette and Madam Administrator for their work on this.
So right now, if we had to write checks, the total amount we would have to pay is $180,939.44.
If you paid out everyone, if the vote was to pay out vacation time and not allow any carryover, yes.
Okay, so the 180,000 and change could be reduced by anyone that uses vacation between now and June 30th.
Yes.
And the forced, no, excuse me, that's maybe the wrong word,
Nope,
and
you're
2-week carryover, right?
Correct. It's like
Both.
multi.
Question about that though. To Selectman Goulart's point, if everybody theoretically took the 2 weeks, how does that change the calculus? Does that reduce the 65,000, or am I?
Everybody, so the 65,000 is the group of employees that have more than 2 weeks vacation on the books. And so if they carry that over, so I'm going to use myself as an example so you can get hard numbers. I have just under 3 weeks, vacation on the books. I would carry over 2, and then I have 15 hours remaining. And you would say, Mallory, we'd like you to consider taking 15 hours of vacation time between now and June 30th. Or if you wanted to go this way, you don't have to. If you wanted to go this way, offer to pay it out. And then how we would pay it out is I ask the accountant to flag the major lines that have buyback balances, the buyback lines that have balances. We have enough to cover the 65,000, so that you're aware of that. We
So
can transfer that.
to your point, just to follow up, because I'm just trying to understand everything
No, I know it's
we
confusing.
proceed. Can we ask I'm trying to choose my words wisely here. Is there any way that we could direct or request that the department heads ask their personnel if they'd be willing to use any vacation beyond 2 weeks before June 30th? Can we ask them that as well?
Yeah.
Just to gauge who might be willing to, quote unquote,
Take time.
help the town out in a difficult situation and take some vacation time.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm showing you these numbers so you see the maximum. So it can only go lower, so that you know the worst case scenario, what it would be, and that you have the power to force the two-week carryover so that you know the liability you're dealing with is not only, but is only 65 of the original 180. So you have a lot of options here as the employer.
I guess, and then I want to hear what my colleagues think, but I guess my point is I just would like to have an idea of who'd be willing to take that extra over 2-week vacation time before we, bring out the checkbook.
Wait, are you saying, you're not saying for them to use 2 weeks at a time, or are you?
No, what I'm saying is if someone has more than 2 weeks, we know they can carry over the 2 weeks.
Right.
Can we have their department heads reach out to them and just say, hey, are you willing, or can you take, some extra vacation time during the current fiscal year to reduce that over the 2 weeks, that
Right.
financial, quote unquote, liability to the town?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, the problem is, though, I'm not sure who would take vacation time now, given there's no place to go. Other than, I realize people stay at home on vacation, but there isn't any, they don't have an option of going down the Cape or going to Europe or whatever. So it's difficult to tell them that they have to take vacation time. So that,
Well, we can't
figure,
tell them they have to.
Madam Administrator, that figure, the cost of the remaining time after forced 2 weeks carryover, that's if we keep things the way they are right now. Before that vote we took a few weeks ago, they're allowed to carry 2 weeks over, and then they would have to decide whether or not they're going to take vacation or ask for the money. Is that correct?
So I'm going to answer this a little bit strangely because I'm not sure of your question. So the motion that is on the table now, or is on the books right now, was allowing everybody to bring over all their vacation. So that would have to be changed before you do anything else. What this document is showing is that if you have all this vacation, you basically cut it to 1/3 by getting all that 2 weeks and just forcing that to carry over into the next year. And most people do that. I think you'll remember all of those votes that you took to bring that over.
Yeah.
Most people are carrying it over. So I don't think it's out of line to request people to consider taking vacation. I'm one of those that I'm pretty worn out by this whole thing, personally and professionally, and I would take vacation. Like, I would do that. So I think everybody's different and everybody's situation's different, and I think it's worthy to have the option presented to them. And I think people in this town specifically, meaning the employees, very much consider what's best for the town in a lot of their decisions. Something I'm proud of, that you have so many people that operate that way. So I think they might take you up on it.
And it's not telling anyone they have to. We cannot tell people they
No.
have to. It is
Would you please consider?
it is planning by asking people, would you be willing to? And then we'll have a better idea, a more accurate idea of what the actual figure would be when the time comes to write the check. So I actually see it as like a sound fiscal management, just to put those feelers out and say, are you willing? Would there be any way you'd want to take a vacation before June 30th? But we definitely can't tell anyone, and I wouldn't do that anyway. So, Selectman
So
Goulart.
that,
Sorry.
can I continue?
Yeah.
So that figure, $65,000, that's if we allow them, well, which they already do, they can carry 2 weeks over, and they don't take any vacation time, we would be obligated to pay $65,000. Those
Right,
that do
correct.
take vacation time, obviously is going to reduce that figure.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Mrs. Goulart, did you have a question?
Yeah, if you look, if the total value is 180,939.44, if you add 135 and the 65, you got 200,000. Shouldn't they come out to equal 180 in total?
Yeah, I wonder what this column right next to vacation payout, he didn't total it, but oh, maybe that was me. So
Well, even if
maybe
you
that's
look at
off
that,
then. Maybe that's off because it should equal the 180.
Yeah, it's off about $20,000.
Oh, no. I think, Nancy, the more than 2 weeks. So if you had 3 weeks, your figure would be in the more than 2 weeks, but you would also have a cost if you only had, if you had 3 weeks, you'd be in the more than 2 weeks column, and then you'd have 1 week in the cost of remaining time after force.
no, let's start over again. The question was, what is the total cost if everybody got paid off for all unused vacation time? I'm asking, is that 180,000? No
Yes.
matter how you break it down, if
No.
that is the true total, the breakdown has to come back to the total. And I can't figure
The way
out,
this spreadsheet is set up, you're having a double count of hours in the more than 2 weeks column. So if you have an employee that has 3 weeks vacation, right, on the books, 3 weeks vacation, their hourly rate and their figure is going to be in the more than 2 weeks column. And then it's going to be in the, what does it cost if we force you to take time off or force you to carry 2 weeks over? You've got the 1 week pay. So the 135 column is probably generated out of anybody who doesn't have more than 2 weeks, which is sort of fiddled away. We can ask them to use their time, or they would be likely to carry it over anyway. But you've got this sort of double accounting of hours in those two columns. So together they wouldn't add up to 180. They would be more.
which doesn't make sense. It's either 180,000 or it's 200,000. I agree with what Chairman Pacheco said. Aside from that, What I said when I brought this up way back when, and Dr. Z kind of talked about this. We haven't asked the employees what they want to do. The term forced time off, I do not support, didn't support it from the beginning. They have an option to carry over 2 weeks. I won't vote to force anybody to do anything. We need to know, does anyone want to take vacation before June 30th? And we should know that by the 1st of June. I know of 2 people that are planning to take time off. If somebody says, I want to carry it over, okay, we need to know how much, what's the dollar value of the carryover. So once we know who's taking vacation and the value of that and the value of the carryover, we can subtract it from the total cost and come up with an accurate balance on what's left. Now, if everyone says, I want to get paid, I don't support forcing them to carry over time. As Dr. Z said at the last meeting, the contracts don't say the contracts say they have an option. It doesn't say we have the right to force them. Now, the other thing too is when we're talking about money, we've got more than enough money in the current budget. At first I said, well, if we don't have enough money, we'll see what's in the budget and we'll look at transfers and we will use free cash. Well, based upon the discussion last night, when I asked the town accountant for a rough guess on what he anticipates will be the leftover balance in the current budget, it was somewhere close to $1 million. So that's another reason not to carry over this unfunded liability into the next year. Pay it off, get rid of it, unless an employee absolutely positively tells us in writing they want to carry over up to 2 weeks vacation time. The funding is there. We may have employees who have a spouse laid off or are having difficulty trying to make ends meet, and this money would be very important to them. So as Dr. C said, we don't know what the employees want to do about this. So before we can actually decide and determine the true cost, we need to know who's taking vacation, who wants to carry over, and who wants to get paid.
We do know that if everybody doesn't carry over any time and they want to get paid, it's 180,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we do know the money.
Yes.
I think we need to resolve this as soon as possible to give the employees an opportunity if they want to take vacation time or not. I think they should be allowed to take 2 weeks if they want to take 2 weeks. Carry over 2 weeks. If they don't want to and get paid, I agree with Mrs. Goulart. We shouldn't carry that liability over to next fiscal year because we know how bad it's going to be next year. So I think the contract allows them to carry over 2 weeks. Some people may want to do that. Others may not. But the money is there. As we heard last night, the $180,000 is there. So people should be given the opportunity to take vacation as long as their supervisor, the department head is in agreement with it, doesn't impact the office. But I think we should resolve this tonight. We can put feelers out there as to see who wants to take vacation or not. But that really doesn't, that only give us the cost. We know the most is going to be is $180,000. Right? And I think we have to kind of bite the bullet
I think you
this
can't,
fiscal year.
you have to allow people to carry over the 2 weeks if they want to. You have to.
If
You
they
have
want, yes.
contractual
Yeah.
obligations for that. But with all due respect to the employees, I understand that line of thinking, but we are in a state of emergency facing a fiscal crisis in FY21. And I think it is well within the bounds of these discussions and what we do to manage effectively the town to require that it be, 2 weeks be carried over as laid out. And you have previous practice of people who have exercised that option. I think it is well within, I just want the board to know I believe it is well within your right to make them carry over the 2 weeks. And I think I had asked Chris Laviolette in preparation of this meeting to flag different items, different buyback lines, and it was 140,000. So the remaining 43 that is on the table for if you paid the whole amount would be coming elsewhere, meaning transferred from an expense account or something like that.
So I want to get to the bigger point, which I think kind of underlies what my colleagues have said, and this is for you, Madam Administrator. I think, and please, colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong, the concern here is not to quote unquote force a 2-week carryover of vacation time into fiscal year 21, because I think what they believe, and I'm also believing as well, based on different things I've heard from our state delegation, that the fiscal situation next year is going to be worse than this year. So I think if this board, Madam Administrator, is going to follow your recommendation, if you have one, we need an answer as to why we would carry an unfunded liability from one fiscal year when the fiscal year was better into a more dire fiscal year. Am I correct? I don't want to mischaracterize what my colleagues have said.
You're spot on.
So you have a legal
Yep.
obligation.
Please,
allow
I
that-
can't hear you, Madam
You
Administrator.
have a legal obligation to allow that 2 weeks for anybody who wants it. So my document there that you are looking at quantifies that, what you are facing if everybody did the 2 weeks. And of course you see the total liability, but it's always an unfunded, like you do it constantly. Every year people carry it over. It's nothing different. It's nothing you haven't done before. It's nothing, you've
But we're in a different
always done
situation.
this.
That's, I guess, I actually understand both sides. There's pros and cons to both sides. I'm not being a fence rider. I do believe we need to come to the employees need security
Resolution.
and stability. So we need to make a decision, but this is not normal circumstances. And I think what they're saying is we can't operate under normal logic because this isn't a normal circumstance. And there's more uncertainty next fiscal year than this one. And so I want to know why we would move it into a more uncertain fiscal year before I take a vote on that. That's all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
to add to this discussion, let us assume of the 180,000 that appears to be the total value of all this vacation time. Once we reduce it by those, at least we know 2 people want to take vacation, they have plans. So we reduce it by whatever that amount comes to. Then we say to we've got to ask the employees, what do you want to do? I want to strike the word force from everything I see because I will not support forcing anyone. The contracts provide them the option. The option is not a forced thing. With what we're facing this year, we absolutely need to know from every single employee, what do you want to do? So we get that information. If they say, okay, I want to get paid, well, then we know the value of all those that want to get paid. And then what's left is the ones that want to carry over some time. Once we know all of that, those who want to carry over time, we encumber that money against this year's budget so that when we go into the new fiscal year, we will have paid off the ones that took vacation, the ones that wanted to get paid, and we have now set aside, encumbered out of the FY20 budget, the value of the vacation carried over. So to address Dr. Z's point, that way we're not carrying an unfunded liability into FY21. The other thing is, when I talked to the town accountant early on, he thought paying everybody off was probably a good idea. And when I heard him say last night, when I said, just give me a ballpark, I don't want to nail you to anything approaching $1 million, my response to him was, that's the balance in the FY20 budget, best guess right now after we pay everything off. I said to him, yeah, that's about right. We've been running that. And what I will say to you is that does not include the estimated receipts that have come in since then. So estimated receipts will close out to free cash, as will any unexpended budget balance. So we actually have an option: pay vacation, pay off those who want to get paid, and encumber the money against the current budget so we have no unfunded liability. And we are still going to have money closing out to free cash that we can use in the fall to see where we are.
Do you have a recommendation, Madam Administrator?
I do. My recommendation is that you ask people to consider taking vacation between now and June 30th, that you force, sorry to use that word, but you mandate that 2 weeks, if you have 2 weeks vacation on the books, that you carry it over or use it, you know, whatever happens between now and June 30th, and that you pay out the rest, whatever's on the, you know, if somebody has a lot of vacation.
Thank you.
So what do the current contracts, the current contracts right now allow them to carry 2 weeks over?
Up
Is
to
that
2
correct?
weeks, up to 2 weeks
Up to
over.
two-
And the police union,
Yeah.
they by right get paid out a week.
So other employees then, if they have more than 2 weeks come June 30th, they can carry 2 weeks over, but do they lose the other vacation time, or do we pay them the
No,
vacation time?
well, it depends on so the police chief has it in his contract to buy it back, the police union has it, but the clerical union, for instance, they don't buy it back. Pay it back, buy it back.
Mr. Chairman, I think up to this situation we're dealing with, the employees had the option, so they would use their vacation spread out accordingly. And we didn't have problems because, in effect, when you take time off, you get paid for it. What we're looking at here is a whole different thing, because I don't believe we've ever had vacation valued at this amount that would be moving potentially into the next fiscal year. And that's the dilemma. But I also believe, based on contract language, we cannot force it. It's an option.
I agree. So do we want to resolve this?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask
No,
one question, and it's related to that point. Madam Administrator, is there, and I'm not just asking this objectively, is there a chance that if we forced, I don't know, some union employee to take a vacation, or excuse me, to force carryover, that we could have a grievance?
Plural, grievances.
I don't think so. If you're forcing them to carry over unused vacation, it's because they are opting not to take it. But you're on record saying that you'd pay it out. So if they really had like, they would come to you and say that. But I don't think it's unreasonable at all to say we are in a state of emergency. We recognize you weren't able to take this vacation. It expires. Everyone earns vacation time knowing that it expires. They have this on the books. To me, it's completely a management option to say you need to carry it over. You're extending a benefit further. I mean, sure, I think they could have a grievance. They could file whatever they want to. I think we'd win. I'd have no problem defending that. But you guys aren't comfortable with it, so I'm not going to, you know, I don't want to put the board in an uncomfortable, the three of you in an uncomfortable position. I just think that it makes a lot of fiscal sense to do it this way. And so that's why it's my recommendation. But, you know, again, if you're uncomfortable with it, at the end of the day, you also need to defend the decision. So
I think the other thing we have to look at, if we say to them, you must use as much vacation as possible before June 30th, how do we operate the town? We haven't asked department heads how they feel about this. Not only haven't we asked employees individually, town department heads have not weighed in on how they would run their departments if all of a sudden a chunk of their employees are saying, I got to take all this vacation before June 30th. We're trying to bring the town back after an assortment of trying to deal with everything. I also feel very uncomfortable. I feel like we're putting the onus of the virus and its effect on this community on our employees by putting the pressure on, and I will not support it. Either they take some, we pay some, or we allow them to carry over at their option, and we encumber the money for the carryover. I do not want to enter the year with an unfunded liability, and I think that's the only fair way to treat our employees. I still want to know how department heads feel. The only one that spoke up, he happened to be sitting in at the meeting, was Mr. Ferry, and we know his department is different. Whether it's bad weather or good weather, he's got plenty of work. So to move ahead with this without even our department heads. I had asked when I brought this up that we get input. I'm glad we got all this, but as I said, we're missing a couple of big chunks. Department heads, how do you feel? Employees, individually, tell us how you feel. We need this information yesterday, but you know what? We need to do this.
I agree. I mean, ideally, people would take all the vacation time. It doesn't cost the town any extra money because they're getting paid anyway. But we're in a unique situation. We voted probably 2 months ago that they can carry over all the vacation time. Now we're going to be telling them they can only carry 2 weeks, which I'm okay with changing that position. I'm not sure how the input from the department heads. I agree with Mrs. Goulart that we should have had that information. However, I'm not sure if that's going to change anything. The department head we can tell everybody, please take your vacation if you want. If not, we're going to pay you by the end of the fiscal year. But if the department head, the superintendent says, I can't allow you to go on vacation, that's it. That's their call, right? I mean, that's been the policy right along. So I agree we shouldn't use the word forced. I'm not going to force anybody. I would like to return it to where it was before we took that vote, that they be allowed to take the vacation time if they want. They can carry over 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks if they want. They can get paid for some of it, take some of the vacation time, carry some over. We know what the cost is going to be at the most is $180,000, which is a lot of money, obviously, if we hadn't planned it or anticipated paying that out. But we're in a very unique situation. This is a pandemic. People can't go anywhere on their vacation. I've been stuck home. Others have been stuck home. So we're doing more work around our house or in our yard. But those that have been working right along, they may not want to stay home. They may want to just take the money. So we have to assume it may go up to $180,000. We have to take that risk. And as Mrs. Goulart said, she asked the question last night, the money is there. I hate to spend it, but I just think we got to resolve this. And the sooner we tell the employees that they can take the vacation, that they're only going to be allowed to take 2 weeks, carry over 2 weeks, the sooner they may want to take their vacation time. If we wait till our next meeting to resolve this 2 weeks from now, we've lost 2 weeks with them. We've already lost 2 months. So that's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I don't remember voting that they could carry everything over. I brought this up. I'm the one that raised this issue. That was never part of my proposal. I do remember that I repeated a couple of times. What the board voted was employees would not lose benefits. And that's when I said, I won't support a time limit on taking it in the new year, because if you don't take it, you're going to lose it. I said, no, because the circumstances under which we would allow them to carry over vacation is beyond their control. And quite frankly, it's beyond our control. No matter how much gets carried over at the employee's option, I also will insist we encumber the value of that carryover against the current budget because the money is there. That way, we start out FY20 without a unfunded liability. We all were at the meeting last night when we heard, based on what was voted at the FinCom meeting, we are slightly under the levy limit and we're headed for a town meeting with a balanced budget. So that's good because we know there will be a fall meeting. So when the balance in the budget for FY20 closes and we add the local receipts and we get our free cash certified, we will have money in the fall to look at other things. But we also approved everything that came before us last night, according to what the Finance Committee discussed. So the only thing we need to address right now is making sure we don't carry anything unfunded. And the town accountant told me we could encumber against this year's budget that vacation time for those who wish to carry it over.
All due respect, this issue came up because a few unions had asked about what would happen with their vacation time. That's why it made it to the agenda. Selectman Goulart brought to light about it being an unfunded liability and for us to consider paying it out. But we did take that vote, Selectman Goulart. It was kind of a two-sided vote where you had voted yes to allow people to carry it all over, but then we were talking about an expiration date, like when they had to use that time, and that's when this came up, because you didn't want to carry it over, similar to what you're saying tonight.
I remember that vote because you wanted to include a use it or lose it clause. I made
Yes.
that motion and I left that clause out specifically. It does not have a use it or lose it in it.
Okay. I'm not trying to make you upset. I did have a recommendation that it would be expired by June 30th, 2021, but that's neither here nor there.
I
That's
left
not
it out
part
of
of
the
this
motion.
discussion.
I know I did.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree that you did.
It just seems the thing we're missing right now is from employees. We need to know employees one by one as fast as you can. What do you want to do?
Actually, I would rather go the first thing that you guys had said, that we put together kind of a survey of such. Are you willing to take vacation? Are you planning to carry over? Or are you looking to be paid out? And then have them respond. And then we can calculate based upon these figures what the liability is we're looking at.
But can
That
I
way
ask
it's
a
not
question?
an open-ended and it's
But
answered.
but that doesn't, for me, I'm only talking about myself right now, and I feel like Chairman Pacheco kind of alluded to this too. I'm not so, that would have been good to do 2 weeks ago. We didn't ask you to do that. That wasn't what we asked, okay? There was no directive on that, but that would have been helpful in hindsight now. I think it would have been helpful. We know what the lower limit is. We know what the upper limit is. So we know what the maximum is. It's this $180,939.44. I love our employees. I respect our employees. But if I know the maximum and the minimum, I know it's going to shake out somewhere in between those two numbers. So I think we need to do something on this tonight. We can still reach out and ask people, what they want to do so we have a more precise figure, but we know what the maximum is in a worst case scenario.
The other thing is that we're talking that figure is $180,000. If people carry over their 2 weeks, they're getting their raise July 1st. So that figure may not be correct at $180,000. It's going to be higher, maybe not much higher, but it's going to be higher.
No, I want to address that in the motion.
It would be paid out. You mean if it would be paid out? Because it would be paid out of FY20. Like Goulart was saying, encumber it would be FY20 rate.
And I would include that in a motion. Mr. Chairman, could I make just let's just say a draft motion and get some input
Sure.
from, okay. Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, so this is a draft motion and I need amendments or whatever, okay? Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to set aside up to $180,939.44 in the FY20 budget to be used to pay for accumulated vacation time for all employees who have a balance and who have not been able to use their vacation due to COVID-19. And that of the $180,939.44, any balance not paid out or used by June 30th be carried over as an encumbrance against the FY20 budget, and it will be paid out in FY21 specifically for carried over vacation.
Just a question. Before I said
I'm just-
no, I know. In your motion, I just want to be sure. It's not saying we're going to pay out the 180. It's just saying we could if everybody decides, nobody wants to take a vacation during a pandemic, right?
Earmarking.
No,
Yeah.
it gives us the option up to 180. So if people use vacation now, whatever they use, they're
Comes
going to
off
get paid, we
Yeah.
deduct it.
Yeah.
So we keep deducting until we get to the end of June. We will know who wants to get the money on the final warrant in June, and we will know who says, gee, I'd like to carry over my 5 days into the new year. It'll all filter down. Whatever the amount is that's left will be for those people who say they want to carry it over into the new year. The amount of money that they will receive will be based on the money we encumbered at this year's rate, not next year's rate.
And before I second this, and I am going to second this, I just want to say to our town administrator, I'd say about 9.999 times out of 10, I will take your recommendations. The only reason this evening that I think I'm going to support the motion ultimately is because I really just feel very strongly about giving our employees options. I'm not disputing. I believe you are correct, Madam Administrator, when you say that we have the management right to quote unquote force someone to take the time. I just personally don't think that I can support that. I don't think that that's what I want to do to our employees during a difficult time. And I certainly don't want to reduce morale during a difficult time. And I think they've been doing a lot. And I'm not saying, I know you support them too. So I know you know what I'm saying, right? It's very important to me that we not muddy the waters, so to speak. I don't want a grievance right now. I just don't. I feel like I want to maintain the best relationship possible with our employees right now because it's more important than ever because we're leaning on them more than ever. And so I'm going to second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, discussion. On the discussion, what we voted on back on April 8th was Selectman Goulart motion, Selectman Sugrafis seconded, and it was voted that the Board of Selectmen allow employees to carry vacation time in excess of 2 weeks based on the department's operational needs, and that passed by us. So unfortunately, Mrs. Goulart, I'm going to ask that you repeat the motion. It was a very good motion. I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
May I ask a question before that? It's about encumbrance.
Sure.
Selectman Goulart, why would we need to encumber the funds? Couldn't we just pay as like one of the end of the year bills?
You mean like an old bill?
No, like, you know, the last warrant is what, like July 3rd or something for the FY20. Like, why couldn't we pay it off at the end like that?
Well, for the people who choose not to use it and not to carry it over, we would pay it on whatever the last warrant of the fiscal year is. The encumbrance I'm referring to would be those who say, I want to carry over up to 2 weeks and get paid next year, because when I discussed this with the town accountant, he said, well, you can encumber that against the current budget and it would eliminate the unfunded liability. So yes, exactly. Anyone who doesn't use vacation but wants to get paid, whatever the last warrant for the fiscal year is, there would be a payroll part to that, okay?
Right.
And before I try to repeat this again, I may have to rewrite it for
I wrote it down. I wrote it down if that's helpful. I wrote it while you were speaking.
Before we do that, Mr. Chairman, in the past, when we have talked about the amount of money that ends up getting certified in free cash and the amount of money that gets left in town budgets that ends up in free cash, when the town accountant threw out a ballpark number, I was thinking of that last night. And I'm thinking to myself, based on that guess, which I think is a pretty good guess, quite frankly, based on historical data, how could we possibly carry over this unfunded liability and have it left in free cash? Because we know free cash gets spent. And this would reduce some of that budget balance that would be carried over. I mean, if it is $1 million, we're talking maybe 820,000. That's still a lot of money that would be left over in the budget. But all I was thinking was, to your point, and you've mentioned several times, the unexpended money in the budget has been a concern of people. And I'm not saying we overtax people. Maybe we're better financial managers than those who initially estimate costs, but this is also something that would kind of go along with what you have said a number of times about not having large amounts in the budget left over to carry into free cash.
I mean, it's definitely, what I will say is, so I've also, Selectman Goulart, been one of those people who has wondered why we have so much free cash. It's been reduced over the last couple meetings by like half of, I think it was something my first year, like 2.5 million. It's down to what, 1.8, 1.5? I think that's, I think that's pretty good. You still want to have that flexibility, I guess is the term I would use, but you want to have something. So.
May I ask a clarifying, I'm sorry.
You can always tell when you have something to say.
I know. Another question for you. So are you saying that in FY21, they can opt to either use the vacation from FY20 or be paid out, or it's just if you carry over the 2 weeks, you've foregone your right to be paid out and you've selected to carry over those 2 weeks?
Anyone who says they want to carry over vacation has to use it, and they will be paid at the rate of their FY20 because of the unique circumstances, and we are giving each employee, quite frankly, a unique opportunity to decide how they want to do this. Now, I will also point out that if a significant number of people carry over the vacation from FY20, there will be money left in the FY21 budget. But quite frankly, we can deal with that later. We're looking right now at so many unknowns, including state aid, that making sure we don't carry any unnecessary expense, like an unfunded liability, into the next year is just something we're trying to manage. That's what I'm saying.
I just have a couple of concerns over that because, and I'm sorry about Kevin. Too much. Yesterday it was like doing my hair. So I have a couple concerns about that. I feel like there might be grounds for a grievance if somebody took their FY20 vacation, carried it over into the next fiscal year, as has always been the case and has been their right, and then you paid them that week at the FY20 rate. I don't think you could do that.
Okay.
And I don't want to get us in the habit of paying out vacation. I'd like it to be clear that this is like a one-time, once in a lifetime item.
I agree. And I'm basing that on the discussion I had with the town accountant. Now, if he were sitting in on this meeting, he could advise us accordingly. I think the main thing we have to focus on is we got a potential liability of $180,000. We need to know from the people involved in that, what do you want us to do? Okay. And once we know that, we'll know how to close out FY20. And certainly we can have discussions with the town accountant if in fact we are going to encumber anything against the FY20 budget. But I realize, like my colleagues have said, we're running out of time, and we've got to know how the employees feel. So the motion that I made that said up to 180,000, 939.44, the number over here, that gets us to the total, and the motion intent was to include the options that are before us and the employees on how this 180,000 is going to be funded and expended.
So that means at future meeting, you'd have a list of people and their payout amounts, and you'd vote on them, a future selectmen's meeting? Like Mallory Aaronstein, $100.
Can I ask you, why do we need to do that? We have the maximum. If we do up to a certain amount, why do we need to go person? That seems,
because you have to make a decision about what the parameters are. Right now in Selectman Goulart's motion that has to be restated, and I wrote it down, I can say that for you.
Mm-hmm.
You've earmarked funding. It's
Mm-hmm.
here. It's a pot of money. Now you have to divvy it up. So that's why I'm asking that question, because we'll go and get that information and then be able to divvy it up, provide you documentation to quote unquote divvy it up based upon who says, yes, I want to be paid out. Yes, I want to carry over, whatever.
If this number is accurate to the penny, whatever the employees tell us, you write the names, you divvy it up, it's got to equal 180, 939, 44. If it doesn't, then obviously there's a problem. But I agree with Dr. Z. Once we say up to, okay, it cannot exceed that unless somebody can tell us, oh, well, there was a calculation that was a little off and it's really 192,000. We can act on that additional money before June 30th. By the same token, if there happens to be a calculation wrong in the other direction and we only spend 179,000, there is no problem because it will actually close out. So I don't see a need to vote employee by employee. My concern is we don't know how the unions are going to feel about this, and the unions should be saying, hey, Town of Dayton Board of Selectmen, sounds okay to us. Or they might say, wait a minute, we got concerns. We don't even know. We're assuming that the unions, they got to have an opportunity, I think, to talk to
They
their.
reached out.
Why would they have concerns? You're giving them all of the options. You're saying if you want to carry over, sure. If you want to use it, sure. If you want to be paid out, sure. How does anybody have a problem with that? To me, you're being so gracious and so relaxed.
And we're
I
keeping
agree
that
completely,
flexibility.
I agree completely, and I expect the union reps to say, hey, Board of Selectmen, sounds good to us. You're letting our rank and file members make a decision. All I'm saying is, because this is such a unique situation, hopefully we'll never have to deal with this again. What I have found in the past, when something comes out of the ordinary, if it's one union or two unions, we sit down and just say, look, this is the action the board took. This is the reason why we took it. The unions, in my experience, has always said, okay, not a problem. I just don't think that we should just kind of ignore them. I mean, just notification. That's all I'm saying.
Madam Administrator, I feel like I know where you're coming from on this. I actually see both sides. My thought on this, I actually am someone who loves to reach out to the unions. Like, we created that policy review board. We love having the unions involved in especially anything that really involves their members. On this, I actually don't think we need to reach out to them because it sounds like the tacit agreement we've come to as a board is that we're going to honor the CBAs, not quote unquote force anyone to. They're going to retain their flexibility to choose what they want to do. And I don't see why we would need to reach out to them specifically, since we're kind of giving them the option to do whatever it is that's best for them right now.
Dr. Z, I should clarify. When I say the unions,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really talking about the shop stewards who are our employees. That's who I'm talking about.
But they reached out to you, didn't they, Madam Administrator?
They did. And they asked to know if we would let them carry more than the 2 weeks over. I don't think they ever expected you to say, yeah, we're going to pay it all out, to be honest. I don't think they expected that. I didn't.
But to Selectman Goulart's point, when they reached out to you, they were under the impression that we were going to let them take more than 2 weeks. So
they asked us to consider it. But when they reached out, we hadn't had a conversation yet. They asked us to consider allowing them to carry over more than 2 weeks, which, they get by right. It's basically they didn't want to lose their vacation.
But, okay, I don't mean to belabor the point, but I think what Selectman Goulart's concern is, now that we're changing that vote, do we think they're going to have something to say?
No, we're not changing our vote. We're just, all I'm saying is, if for no other reason, a courtesy, when something, this is totally out of the ordinary, all I'm saying is that the shop steward should be notified, certainly, and of course, and there are employees too, they're employees. But all I'm saying is it's a courtesy. I'm hoping somebody's going to be watching this meeting so they see the discussion and the concern that board members and the TA has expressed, not only for the employees, but for the town and for the total financial situation we're dealing with now and going into the new fiscal year. Dr. Z, I know you had asked me to have some kind of a little report, and if we have time, I can explain to you what we did when we had the last crisis. But I did say that at the time was a crisis, but it's a piece of cake compared to what we're dealing with tonight.
So, Mrs. Goulart, under your motion, we are not changing the prior motion that we made, so we're going to be allowing our employees to carry over more than 2 weeks?
No.
Is that correct?
What we're saying is we're going to give them an option. So what in effect would, what we, all right, let's back up. The vote was, we don't want them to lose benefits, no question. Then we had that vote and it didn't have a deadline, use it or lose it. We had that vote. Now that we've had all this discussion and we've seen a number, $180,000, we are now in effect saying, now that we have all the info and we know what we voted in the past, this is now what we think is an appropriate approach to deal with this with our employees. So that's what I'm saying. Now, I can't imagine anybody wanting to carry it all forward and with the thought that they might not use it. And I mean, like I say, I think we're going to find there are people who really could use the money, but that's their personal thing. I'm just thinking that the motion that I made has tried to incorporate all of the options available to our employees, and it really doesn't affect what has happened in the past. You know, the dollars, it's 180,000 no matter how you look at it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can you, so I'm just a little confused. Before we take the vote, and this is really for anybody, Madam Administrator, anybody, Mrs. Brady, anybody. I thought we had voted before to allow employees to carry over more than 2 weeks. And the discussion tonight has been, it's going to be just 2 weeks max. So we would effectively be changing, right, what we did before.
Yeah. So is that part of the motion, though? Are we changing it?
You need to, number one, vote to reconsider, and then you'll talk about this. And then Selectman Goulart, I'm assuming, is going to make that same motion about setting aside the money. And then you'll handle the carryover just like you normally did with the 2 weeks if they want to. And then
I'll go back to what I said when I started this motion. This is only a draft motion.
Mm-hmm.
I need help with the wording. So if we go through it bit by bit, Mrs. Aaronstein, if you could start reading the first part and we'll say, that's okay up to there. Then you read the next part and say, wait a minute, that's got the week thing. We got to make sure we're not in conflict with what we voted before. So I would ask that you read it back in segments and we kind of pass through it and make changes. And then when we get one that works for us, I will make a true motion. This is a draft.
Okay, ready? Move to set aside up to $180,939.44 in the FY20 budget to be used to pay for accumulated vacation time. Keep going. For all employees who have not been able to use their vacation due to COVID-19, and if that any balance not paid out, or sorry, I was going fast, out or used be carried over as an encumbrance for FY21. So I have a couple questions on this.
Me too.
I'm good up until for all employees. So I just want to say for all employees instead of who have not been able to use their vacation, because that's kind of gray and broad. People have all been able to use their vacation. We just have it.
So let's go back and do it again.
Yep.
Everything was okay up to set aside the dollars, 180, FY20, and then read the next phrase.
Sure. Used to pay in FY20 budget to be used to pay for accumulated vacation time for all employees.
Okay, everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yep.
And then
you had said, but I recommend not to say this. You said who have not been able to use their vacation due to COVID-19.
Oh, that's fine with me. We can.
I would take that out for all employees. Blanket.
Yep.
Okay.
Dr. Z and Mr. Pacheco, you agree we strike that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Oh, sorry. And then the rest of it goes, and that any balance not paid out or used be carried over as an encumbrance. So I'm kind of confused on that. I think you can say, I think you can say set aside up to 180 yada yada in FY20 budget to be used to pay for accumulated vacation time for all employees who choose not to carry over a vacation balance into FY21.
Madam Administrator,
I'll write that down.
that specific language to me sounds like someone could carry over more than 2 weeks. Is that?
Well, as I was saying it, yes, but I also want to remember what I said. But yeah, I'm going to take Selectman Goulart's tact. It's a bit of a draft, and I need.
Yeah, no, I know it's. I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
everyone else is interpreting it the same way I am.
Yep. No, I
Yes,
agree with
I
you.
am.
And I'm trying to make it fit the
Mhm.
previous votes we've taken, so we're not in conflict.
My only.
So we're not going to,
You
Yeah,
should,
so we're not going to rescind,
should revote.
we're not going to rescind the previous vote then?
No, not if we can add, not if the one that we're trying to put together right now is in effect in agreement with that one.
But it won't be.
It won't be
Won't be.
because that motion, excuse me, I keep saying motion, that previous vote allowed people to carry over whatever they had more than 2 weeks. So we actually
Right.
do
Right.
need to.
But the last phrase, Mrs. Aaronstein, would you read the last part of that about what they can carry over?
That I said
Yeah,
or that you said?
well, tell me what I said and then tell me what you said.
So you said that any balance not paid out or used be carried over as an encumbrance for FY21 as an FY20 payout. So I found that to be just a little confusing. So I was saying, so to pay for accumulated vacation time for all employees who choose not to carry over 2 weeks vacation or less.
So then we would have to recede the previous,
I think that you do
Motion.
regardless because we're reconsidering the whole thing and it makes it
Yeah.
harder to try to conform to that previous vote because
We-
it's not jiving with what you want to do now. It's not.
And also this current, it sounds like our tacit agreement is in line with the CBAs. Letting them carry over more than the 2 weeks is superseding the CBA
Right.
in a certain respect. So I think we need to make it clear that it's up to 2 weeks if the employee chooses.
Okay, so let's look at that last part about
So I'm going to read it again in totality and Selectman Goulart.
okay.
So move to set aside up to $180,939.44 in the FY20 budget to be used to pay for accumulated vacation time for all employees who choose not to carry over up to 2 weeks vacation or less into the next fiscal year. Sorry, hold on. Who choose not to carry over up to 2 weeks vacation into the next fiscal year.
Yep.
That sounds like it's in agreement with what we've done.
Yes, I think so.
Does everybody agree that meets the, let's say, the spirit and intent of what we voted before? I think it does, but I need to know.
The spirit and intent before was just not to cap the carryover. The intent now, I believe, is to cap it at 2 weeks, but to allow the employee to give them that choice.
Right.
They can take the vacation or carry it over. I
Or
could be
right.
misunderstood.
So in effect, the 2 weeks matches what's in the collective bargaining agreements for those
Yeah.
agreements that
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah.
And in effect, you're saying to employees, max you can carry over if you choose is 2 weeks and you're going to be paid for the balance that you can't carry over. That's what we're saying, I believe.
Yep. 100% accurate. Yep.
Karen, did you
So
get
tell
that?
me,
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
so town administrator, should we rescind the previous motion first
Yes,
and then entertain this motion?
yes.
So
So
on
I will
the
entertain,
oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, on the draft motion, I believe I seconded it. So should I rescind my second? She can rescind her motion and then we'll rescind the original vote, right?
I thought everything was just in draft, so I didn't think we
Yeah, I
actually
don't-
had the
Brett,
motion.
Dr. Z, I don't think we have to, because what I said was this is a draft motion and I need your help with it.
Okay.
And I think you seconded it just because it was a motion, but it was truly a draft. And now that I've got the advice input from everybody, we will have a motion to vote on. So I'm going to make a motion that we rescind the vote of, what was the date of that meeting?
April 9th,
I believe it was April 8th.
8th, yeah.
All right, April 8th, regarding vacation carryover.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, okay, so it's regarding vacation carryover. Okay, that's it.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Okay, Mr.
I'll
Chairman,
entertain that second motion.
Mr.
yes.
Chairman, I move that the board vote to set aside up to $180,939.44 in FY20 budget for all employees who choose not to carry over up to 2 weeks vacation.
Second.
Mrs. Aaronstein, does that fit what you said? Because I've been scribbling.
Yeah, sorry. So you just have to add in there to pay for accumulated vacation time.
Okay.
Right before that. Ready? Set aside up to $189.39.44 in FY20 budget to be used to pay for accumulated vacation time for all employees who choose not to carry over up to 2 weeks vacation into the next fiscal year.
Okay, that's fine. Mrs. Brady, did you get that?
I did, I got it.
Okay.
Second.
Are you still there? Are you still there, Brett? Yeah. So I do want a clarification of that $180,000. Does that figure include the possibility that those two people who are taking vacation, they don't take the vacation? So this is the maximum. So if they take the vacation, it's actually going to be less.
Yeah, and that's why I said up to,
So-
because whatever's
Yeah.
left will close out if we don't expend it for vacation.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure that we've got a figure that's going to cover it.
It does.
Any further discussion on this, please? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Boy, that took a long time.
Ooh.
And we're gonna need
I
a
checked my clock. I
vacation.
go, it's not 7:30, it's 6:30.
We're gonna need a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be taking my
So
2
the-
weeks.
So the next item on the old business is to sign the annual town meeting warrant. Now, just for clarification, so we've made recommendations before I went to the finance committee. We've heard their input on this, so we may want to change our recommendations, but that's not going to happen tonight. Tonight, we're just voting, because we have to do it by the 20th, we're voting to put these warrants, these articles on the warrant
Can
for
I ask
June
a
15th,
question, though?
16th.
That
Yes.
was my understanding, Mr. Chairman. However, I thought we had to do the recommendations because aren't they printed on the warrant?
Oh, they are, Karen?
They
Some of them,
usually
yeah.
are.
On the
All right,
special,
so
on the special ones, I believe.
I have that set for the 27. When are we meeting? 27?
I think that's too
Yeah.
late, though.
What our meeting is not until the 15th of June.
But we do,
We have all this extra time.
no, but when is the warrant gonna get posted
Was just gonna
publicly?
ask.
June 1st. June 1st.
So we're not cutting it a little close?
Well, Mrs. Brady, how much time do you need to get this to the printer and get it mailed out?
If you vote on it on the 27th, it can be done, no problem.
But is
So-
that, sorry,
Go ahead, Dr. Z.
I was just gonna ask, I feel like, are we putting you out by doing that so close to when it needs to be printed? I know a lot goes into that, so.
It's already done, and actually, I already have put your recommendations on it, so it's easy to change. It's simple.
So if we review it at the meeting on the 27th, if we want to change a number or modify our recommendation, you've got time to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't hear you. Did you say yes?
we do. Mhm,
Okay.
Yep.
Are we talking about recommendations for the budget, like the numbers? Or are we talking about
No.
recommendations for the articles?
The like actual warrant
article.
articles.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Karen, Mrs. Brady, are you going to have the FinCom recommendations from last night?
She
Yes,
emailed us.
I've already put them on. Unfortunately, they're not on your copy,
Okay,
but they are, I do have them done already.
okay, all right, fine.
Thank you,
And
Karen.
they sent out last night their recommendations in an email
Yeah, I saw that.
to all of us. So we do have that. So are we okay with the warrants then, so that we can have them all set? Because we got to do that by by May 20th. Is that correct? That's the closing on the. We had a May 20th date.
So we have to close, so next meeting is gonna be closing the special town meeting warrant. You vote on special town meeting, you sign special town meeting's warrant, and then everything together gets posted on June 1st. So Karen has said that on the 27th, we can do the recommendations for the articles. While we're talking about this, we need to shed light on the senior tax work-off program. Unfortunately, there's not, I don't know how we pull that off this year because there's not so much room on the levy. So do you want to continue with that or do you want to wait?
What article is that?
Towards the end, because it's accepting language. I don't know the exact number. Let me grab that.
Can I ask you what
I
you're
found it,
suggesting,
page
though?
13, number
Thank you.
27.
Thank
What are
you.
you suggesting, Madam Administrator? Is it too late to take that completely off? I don't know what your suggestion is, that's all.
So if we roll out this program, we
Yeah.
have to account for it against the levy because
Yeah.
basically it's a tax subsidy. And they cut it very close. I tried to get them to talk about it at the meeting. They didn't spend a lot of time on it. We can't, we're really kind of backed into a corner. If you roll it
Yeah.
out, you want it to be successful. You want people to be able to join. With COVID-19 regulations, how do we have people join and be safe? Because the whole point is to lessen contact. So that's a whole other thing. But financially, you have to have space on the levy to provide you basically account for it. I know no money's actually changing hands because it's a tax break, but we have to account for that. So if you want us to pursue it, we're gonna have to attack that again, but somebody needs to give direction. I need direction.
Well, do we, I'm sorry, so, Selectman Goulart.
I'm going to make a motion that we strike Article 27 from the warrant and renumber the remaining articles on the warrant.
Can I make a friendly amendment,
Oh,
Selectman Goulart?
yeah.
And I don't know, maybe someone can figure out the wording, but I would like to have in that motion that we are committed to putting this on a future warrant.
No,
I don't know
my
if that's
position is
possible.
we strike it here
Uh-huh.
and we note in the minutes it's going to appear on the fall town meeting warrant. That way, when the fall comes, if we're still in worse straits,
Yep.
it doesn't make it then. As long as
Okay.
we're showing intent and the minutes indicate
Yep.
we're
Yeah.
promoting this. So
Okay, I'm okay with that.
And
So,
if we pay
my-
cash again on the bond, you'll have the levy room. Sorry.
What was that, please?
If we pay, remember last year and the year before, we took free cash and paid the bond payment?
Mhm.
Yes.
Took it off the tax rolls. If we do that again, if we're able to do that again, you have the room on the levy.
Okay, I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. I'm
Okay,
gonna
so-
second
Yeah,
that.
no, okay, discussion on the motion. Now, I was the one that asked that this be put on the warrant. This clearly was before the pandemic and the situation that we're in now. So I do have some concerns about this. That I'm glad, Dr. Z, that you've asked that it remain active at some point, that we address it again, because I would hate to see this just go away.
Mhm.
You know, whether we could have cut some of the monies that we're going to spend off the budget to allow this to happen. Because if this passed, the board set up the rules. We can limit the number of hours town residents can work. We can set the criteria for it. We can even limit the amount of money that can go into this. Like we can say it's $100,000. No more than $100,000 can be taken off the tax rolls. So I'm gonna support this, but I'm glad, Dr. Z, that you brought to our attention that we will vote on this. Look at this again. We may not be able to do it in the fall.
Mhm.
That we have to see what the situation is. So I agree. but I'm glad we're not going to just drop the ball on this, so
No.
I will
And
support.
Yeah.
That's my
And I-
intent of making the motion is not to forever banish this. So,
Yeah.
Mrs. Brady, under discussion, if you could summarize to the effect that it was the consensus of the board that acceptance of Chapter 59, Section 5K of the MGL's tax work-off program will be on the warrant for the fall town meeting, so that it shows that it is our intent to bring this before the voters. My other thought is, in reading this, not only are we looking at a financial situation, we're looking at a vulnerable population under the current COVID guidelines. And the question would be, would we have anybody even physically eligible or who would want to come in? So I think by the fall, hopefully, we're going to have a better handle on the virus and how it's affecting the town in general.
May I make a comment to you, Chairman Pacheco?
Yes,
My concern
Yes.
was, I mean, obviously I was concerned with the levy. My other concern was just, I suspect in the next few months, the state will slowly reopen. People will slowly go back to work. Things won't go back to normal. Things will be different for sure. And so my other concern was just being mindful of people being out of work and shifting that. I know it's not a lot of people. I know it's not a lot of tax dollars, but to shift that burden onto people who are feeling the hurt right now is tough for me. So I feel more comfortable to reassess this at the fall town meeting for sure. But I am committed to it, and I think it's a really good idea, and I thank you for it.
thank you, everybody.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Now, on the rest of the warrants, don't we need to vote on the rest of the warrants
Are we
for
going
us to sign the?
to
I
read
think
the
we
warrant
I
tonight?
think we can vote to sign it because we voted to already put all these articles on here. We'll do the recommendations in 2 weeks. Am I wrong, Madam Administrator?
you're
I don't
right.
think, did we vote special articles?
No, that's
Oh,
next week. That's next week. I mean, next meeting.
Okay, so,
Let's be clear, the recommendations are next meeting. All these articles are on here because we put them on here. We didn't take anything off until just a second ago, right?
Right,
Okay.
yes.
okay, so next meeting will be our final action on the entire warrant, correct?
Yep.
Correct, including the special town meeting before the annual. You're gonna do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I mean, Selectman Goulart, our legal analyst, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm nervous making this motion. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve, the annual town meeting warrant as prepared this evening with what article number did we take out?
with the deletion of Article 27.
Yes, with the deletion of Article 27, that we approve the warrant for the annual town meeting.
Approve and sign.
Approve and sign. Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Right.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Discuss the Board of Health's request for additional hours for fiscal year 21.
This is something that
So-
came in after you had voted your recommendation, so that's why it's here again. Or you're talking about this budget again.
Madam Administrator, or actually anyone who remembers from last night, when the FinCom made their recommendation on the Board of Health budget, were these numbers in there?
Yes.
And what did they do? I'm sorry, it was a long meeting.
No problem. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Thank you.
I think they included them.
Okay, I just want to be in line with them
Yep.
on this, so.
I'm verifying that. I believe that they did, but I'm sorry, give me
I believe they did too. I just want to make sure. Take your time. It was a 4-hour meeting, probably like this one.
Let's hope not.
No, I know.
Mr. Swart said it was over by 8. I remember him saying that.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I was supposed to be another place. I had to cancel that meeting, so they
Somebody
rebounded.
said it was, somebody said it was gonna be over by 7. I won't mention that person's
It
name.
was me. It was me. It was budget 519, right, for the,
Yes.
Yes, we had to do it.
so they wanted, oh, it doesn't include it. It doesn't include it, but I think the intent was to, it includes it. Nope, that's the wrong budget. It
Because I
doesn't,
remember speaking about this last night.
yeah, they supported that. I know that they did. They just didn't, they took the Board of Selectmen recommendations and mirrored them. So what I will do is just verify, you guys will take your action, but I'm gonna talk to Ed and verify about that.
How much money are we talking about here?
I think 2,000 total. Let me just review.
Yes, it's 1,000 to 3,000.
Well, it's from
There's a
2,000.
It's
couple.
2, right, it's 2,
Yeah,
yes.
so it's $3,000 total. So there's
Okay.
2 items, $3,000 total.
Okay. Now, Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the request from the Board of Health to increase their budget by $2,000 for additional hours in the FY21 proposed budget.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Madam
Next
Admin-
item is,
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask,
Yes, go
Mr. Chairman, is the Board of Health next year, when they do their budget, are we gonna discuss whether those hours would be needed, for the next fiscal year?
I think that should always be a question that you ask regardless of, this request was specific to COVID-19.
Mhm.
And as you remember, last year, they requested additional hours for their office manager. I think it should always be a question for
Okay.
any budget. That's not singling out the Board of Health.
Thank you.
Okay, I've updated your recommendations and I'll shed light on them for the FinCom
Thank you.
and get that information. Okay.
okay, the next item is the James Briggs House. I think I forwarded to everybody the letter from the Historic Commission. I wasn't able to attend the meeting last night, but we got a letter saying that they're asking, I've spoken to someone who is interested in moving the house. And I've made that person aware that it would have to go out to bid because the value of the house is, Madam Administrator has indicated to me, is more than $35,000, so it has to go out to bid. So it will go out to bid. So the Historic Commission voted last night to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we have this, have the house go out to bid. So that's what's before us tonight. There's a whole process. Madam Administrator, you provided me with some information on that, but there's a whole process. It's going to take a few weeks. Obviously, if it goes out to bid, we can't have an open house because of the pandemic, COVID-19. But one of the members of the Historic Commission has taken pictures and some video of the house, and he's willing to provide that to whoever's interested in putting a bid for the house. Obviously, whatever we get for the house is a bonus, and if we don't have to spend the money to have it demolished, that's great. And if the building gets to be preserved, that's great. So, quite frankly, and I'm speaking only for myself and not the board, I'm not seeking, I don't expect to get a lot of money for the house. It's going to cost that person to move the house, but we get to preserve an historic house in Dayton, and I'm hoping that everything works out. So I can't mention who's interested in it. Hopefully there's more than one person interested in it, but we at least have one person that's interested in the house, so I'm pleased with that.
I think that's fabulous, Mr. Chairman. I'm excited. I guess I have one procedure, so I'm going to happily support this, but I do have one question. Normally, when, let's say, a home in town is dilapidated, nobody's living in there, the town takes it down. The town recoups the funds that it took to demolish that property eventually. I'm assuming with the Briggs house, if unfortunately nobody wanted to move that house, buy it and move it, that
Yeah.
we don't get to recoup those funds. Now we've just paid to demolish it. Am I correct on
Right.
that?
Because it's our house.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I think I mean I want to hear what Selectman Goulart has to say, but I think this is a no-brainer for me.
I think, well, we had said all along, just like the house on Center Street that we couldn't get any takers. If anybody has any thoughts about moving it or taking it down board by board, or even buying bits and pieces, we would be interested. So yeah, I would support that. If this is a question for Mrs. Aaronstein. So in the process of putting it out to bid, what would the timeline be? And if you have a pre-bid conference, let me put it that way.
Mhm.
Have a pre-bid conference and, a couple of people show up, would it be possible to allow a limited tour for interested bidders? And I don't mean hordes of people. I mean truly interested bidders who want to peek in the door or whatever. Because
So I agree. How I would set it up is I would have Jim there. He would open the building and take one person in at a time with
Yeah.
Jim would be there. Nobody can ask, here's the nuances here. Nobody can ask the question. They've got to save their questions until they're in the presence of the whole group. We would
Correct.
conduct this outside. So I would be there, Jim would be there for the town.
Yep.
And then people would go into the house and tour it and then come back outside one by one, as tedious as that sounds, but that's how we could do it. They could actually see the house, because I don't think it's fair to keep them out. If we can do it, we should be able to.
Yeah.
And then, everyone wears a mask and such. And then we have a pre-bid conference where they ask their questions, we take them down, we discuss the answers, and then we send that all out. That becomes an addendum
okay.
and we go forward. And as far as timeline, I have to write this scope, and it's been on my to-do list for ever since actually Selectman Pacheco kind of came to me and said, hey, we're gonna have to do this. So I have to write it. I've been focused on other things, but now that the budget's sort of settled and the reopening is on a roll, I can focus on it and I can plan to write that. I need, Karen did some back work for me. I need Jim to talk about what condition the approved bidder is going to leave the property in, not the house, but the actual land, how we go about saying that. And then we go forward, we advertise. I did have the value, I'm not going to say it right now, I did have the value from the assessor's office. It was higher than I expected and higher than I think we would ever get. And so if we decide to accept a bid that is lower than that amount, which I'm sure you're going to do, we have to publish in the Central Register why we decided to do that. And we certainly have a case to defend why we are doing that. So we're in a pretty good spot there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
There were a couple of questions in the email. So I think we covered, well, actually, maybe we didn't. One question that was raised by or do you want to read it, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry.
You want me to? Oh, you can read it. You can read
Okay. So one question that the Historical Commission, it seems, had was whether it was possible to extend the demolition delay due to the pandemic state of emergency. I guess that's for you, Madam Administrator.
I would say no, but I know Ken wants to say something. Sorry, I spoke before.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I believe it's August, isn't it? Isn't that the 6 months? So I think we have time to go through this whole process. If we get close to that, I'm in favor of extending it, quite honestly, to preserve the building. But I'm not sure we have to address that at this time.
Okay.
Do you agree,
I mean,
Madam Administrator?
I agree.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I would be open to extending it too, but these are good questions, so I just wanted to ask them. The other thing I wanted to ask, I guess you, Mr. Chairman, is there was mention of a sign. Is that a sign that the Historical Commission would make? Do we need to buy a sign? What do we want to do? Are we making a
right
sign?
now,
Like, is it a Sharpie marker? It wasn't clear, so I don't know if this is something we need to act on.
I think we need to get more information, because I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about for a sign, but we do have a spending freeze on discretionary spending, so the Historic Commission can't really buy a sign to put out there. I'm not suggesting that the town do that, but I do kind of understand what they want people to drive by and see that this building is up for auction or whatever. I think it's at the Save the James Briggs House.
Yeah.
Is that what they wanted to sign? Yeah,
That is
so
what they want
I'm
to
not, yeah, I'm not sure that's what the board would want to put on it.
You can't, because you can't politic, like you can't get into a political
Yeah,
deal with it.
we
so
can't
we
use the
can't.
word save, you mean.
No.
But I guess my question for my colleagues would be, I kind of err on the side of how would anyone know that this house, because there was a for sale sign out in front of it, and that's how we all knew it was for sale.
Right.
If there's not an auction sign, I'm going to use the word auction, not a save our, not anything like that.
Yeah.
But if there's not an auction sign, how does anyone know there's anything to bid on other than a communication that we send out that probably no one will check the website on?
Did the Historical Commission follow up with placing an ad in the MMA Beacon? Because they asked me about that.
I believe that they did not do that.
Oh, okay.
I did not attend last night's meeting, but prior meetings we discussed it, but we didn't follow through on that. It was discussed though.
Well,
We
there
can
would
put
still be time to get something in the Beacon for an August or July or
Oh.
auction, so.
we can put it in the central register. We're not mandated to, but we can, just to gather interest. Who knows? And
But
that
back-
hits a lot of different people. Because you
back-
need a particular buyer here. You need somebody with the ability to move
Yeah,
a home.
we need a blue collar Dayton resident to help us out here. So back to the sign, I don't mean to belabor the point, but I am kind of feeling strongly that where we may be in the situation, it sounds like that someone's interested, so that's great, but we may be in a situation where people just simply don't know that this house is up for auction. So do we want some sort of a auction sign? I'm not even going to be specific about what it would look like, just to let people know this property, this house is going to be auctioned eventually.
I don't think you should do that, because you wouldn't do that with any other surplus equipment. We didn't do that at the transfer station when we had a bunch of stuff. And then you might get the wrong idea, because this is very new.
Madam
It's not the
Administrator,
land.
a lot of that equipment that got auctioned was out in the front of the
Yeah.
transfer station. So anybody that drove by saw we cannot put the James Briggs house in the front of the transfer station so everybody can see it and know that these are the things that we're not using that might be up for auction. Right now, I'm just talking about the kind of old vehicles that get placed near the gate on Tremont Street at the transfer station. So my concern is just visibility. I don't know if anybody else has this concern.
I got a comment about signs. I think we ought to put up no trespassing signs, because at least 2 days, I have seen people over on the property kind of peeking in the windows and also doing metal detecting.
Oh,
My
geocaching.
concern is that those of us that have been over know that that is not even land. It's frost heaves and it's potholes. You know how lawns get, and
Vogels.
up and down.
Yep.
I don't want anyone to fall and break something. I don't think it's wise to be peeking in windows. And I really think that access to that property should be limited to those who are truly interested in having I'll call it guided tour, as Mrs. Aaronstein talked about. And as far as extending the period of time, if we truly have interested bidders and we're getting close, in an appropriate time, I would be interested in hearing how much additional time is needed. I wouldn't want to do it right now, but
Yeah.
as long as we have interest and we're getting close, then I think we would consider this at a future meeting as far as extension of the time allowed before it goes to demolition.
So I can go forward with the scope, right? I'm not waiting on that. I
Yeah,
can.
no. Yeah, this doesn't impede anything. And in fact, we don't even need to talk about the sign because we're not having the auction now. So it's just something to think about, and it's a question that they raise. So I just want to make sure they have what they need to make this successful.
I agree.
I do want to say thank you to Mr. Ferry. When the his workers were over there removing some shrubs and things of that nature. They did take the mailbox down because I noticed that that was open and it looked like there was junk mail in it, but I'm glad that's gone. But I really think we need to think about doing something, because although it's public property, it's not like coming onto the manicured lawns at Town Hall, and I'm concerned about potential injury.
So do we have to take a vote then to have no trespassing signs put there? I agree with Mrs. Goulart that we should have those signs there.
Actually, I would
but do-
actually ask for it because we're on the spending freeze. So I would request a vote.
And before
Okay.
I make that motion, I'm on a no trespassing kick now. When I was in the town hall this afternoon, I was getting ready to leave. I was talking to Mrs. Brady facing the field. There were people going from the field down in the corner where they bring the cows, and they went to the Aggie school. So I think we need to put no trespassing signs down there. I think Mr. Ferry was going to put something, but I think we need one right out before you even enter that little thing, that little cow path, I'll call it. And we weren't talking children, we were talking adults. And this is exactly what the complaint was we had. They were headed down, I don't know, to check out the animals or something. And we know that's a construction site, and we know there are grazing animals there. So anyhow.
Can I ask a dumb question? Like a really dumb question. I feel bad even like asking this.
No
It's
question,
embarrassing.
dumb.
How can we put a no trespassing sign on public property?
Well, as a matter of fact, all of the Aggie school is posted. And it also says it's under camera surveillance. Now, whether we say no trespassing or danger construction zone, do not enter in that particular cow path, all I'm saying is, I don't know if those people didn't hear that conversation we had that night, but school had asked us to help out, and we did what we thought we could. But maybe danger, no, do not enter construction area might deter some people. I don't know.
But if that's not our property, do we have to put the sign kind of more towards, do you know what I'm trying to ask? More
It would be on, it would be on town property. It
Okay.
would not be on Aggie property.
Okay.
They can do their own posting. And evidently they've tried to do something, but I think if you're out there walking around and you have a small child, let's cut through and see the animals, not even thinking that the setup over there is not the way it would normally have been if there was no construction. And if you go through that area, you come right to the animal pens.
So should we take a motion on that also, Madam Administrator? I'm okay with it. So it can be one motion, I guess, that we put no trespassing signs on the James Briggs property, as well as the entrance to, just before you get into Bristol Aggie on town property.
I'm willing to make the motion for the Briggs house for no trespassing, but I think my motion would be danger, do not enter construction zone.
For the,
Something like
for the
that.
For the,
path?
yeah,
Okay.
okay, I'll entertain the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we post the property where the James Briggs house is located with no trespassing signs.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, objections, abstentions, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we put appropriate signage on town property at the beginning of the little lane that goes from the town track over to Bristol County Agricultural School property. And I would say appropriate language because Mr. Ferry will come up with the appropriate language. Suggested language. All right, post sign, suggested language, construction zone, danger, construction zone, do not enter.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. We've already discussed the,
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add that we will ask Mr. Ferry to take care of both of these. And if Mr. Ferry feels that the language on the sign going towards the county property needs a little modification, we would allow him to do that as long as it's within the spirit of what we're trying to do.
Sure.
Thank
Did we already vote to put the Briggs house out to bid? Did we vote on that, or do we need to vote on that?
Oh, we got to grant if we're going to do it, we need to grant the request of the Historical Commission.
No, I think you just need to declare it surplus and to dispose of it. Because technically that's what it is. It's a surplus item. The house itself.
Well, my concern is that the town already voted to take it down and the clock is ticking. Mr. Chairman, could you read that email again? From the Historical Commission, a society, whatever.
Yeah. Yes, at the meeting tonight, the Historic Commission voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to put the James Briggs house out to bid.
Is that
You want the whole email?
Is that the
What's that, please?
entire?
No, the next line is, since we cannot have an open house, Rafa is willing to share his pictures, videos of the house with the bidders. The commission has some questions about the demolition delay. Is it possible to extend the demolition delay due to the pandemic state of emergency? How long would the bidding process take, and would it exceed our 6 months delay? In discussing publicity for the James Briggs house, Rafa asked about a sign on the house, Save the James Briggs House, to help with publicity. He's also nominating the house to the Most Endangered Historic Resources Program on www.preservationmass.org. Regarding commission members, okay, that's something separate.
Okay,
So-
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that the board vote to instruct the town administrator to solicit bids relative to moving or otherwise relocating the James Briggs house.
Second.
Any discussion?
All of
If
the
not, I'll listen.
all of the details relative to that, how it's going to be done, and we talked about pre-bid conference and all of that, would be at the discretion of the town administrator.
If no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah,
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. We've
Mr.
already discussed the yes.
Relative to the request to extend the date, Mr. Chairman, I move that at this time, we do not extend the date, the demolition date for the Briggs house unless and until the need arises because we have active bidders who will need a little more time in order to facilitate the bids. And in such case, this will appear on a future agenda. Insufficient time so that we could allow an extension if necessary.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. We've already discussed the Miller's Lane. The next item is to discuss the Board of Selectmen's posting / statements on social media. I don't know who put this on the agenda, so whoever did can address this.
I don't know what it's about.
Yes. Hold on 1 second. Okay. My apologies. I have like a million things over here.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
one other comment. Anything relative to signs, or if there is need for further discussion about some kind of advertising, I would leave that also up to the discretion of the town administrator, and the Historical Commission could discuss that with her. I don't think this board has to take action on that.
I agree.
Agreed.
Dr. Z?
Yes. Okay. So I don't know if everyone remembers, we had some sort of a, I can't remember if it was formal or informal conversation about the statements that were being read at the meetings, and then that we would get them proofread before. And I guess my question for the board is, do we want that to apply to things like the Town of Dayton Facebook page as well?
Well,
I
you
don't
kind
know
of
what
have
this
to
is
under the
about.
policy.
I'm in the dark. I'm not sure what
No,
we're
no, and that Selectman Goulart, this is why I put this on here because I'm aware that you are not actively on Facebook. I am, and Selectman Pacheco is, and so we had made a vote prior that if someone's going to make like a statement at the beginning of the meeting, we would read it first. They can make the statement, right? That's allowed. Someone can make a statement, but that we would be able to read it before it was read. And I want to know from the board if we want that to also apply to like public statements when we release them on our official page.
Well, if there are
So I,
a
yeah,
statement
it's-
from
so-
the board, wouldn't we approve it ahead of time?
It's
Not
not
necessarily.
necessarily always from the board. I guess like we all post on there, meaning anyone who's authorized to, per our social media policy, to have the access can post on there. Chairman Pacheco, I know you're going to say something.
Yeah, no, for example, you posted something yesterday on the red alert, correct?
Yep.
Are you saying that the board would have to vote on that first before you had the opportunity to post that?
Not vote because I put it as myself, but I'm asking if the board, as a courtesy, wants to know what we're going to be posting, basically.
I guess I'm not following you.
You mean
Are we-
if from the board? If it's from the board, we should know about it, but if you as an individual, so are you are you
Yes,
posting
yes,
to the
yeah.
town site or your own site?
No, see, that's
No.
where I'm getting at. Yes, so we have a Town of Dayton Facebook page, and regularly, both myself, Madam Administrator, and also Chairman Pacheco will, I don't know what to call them, statements, we will post on the social media page as the Town of Dayton, even though we will often say it, who it's from. So what I'm asking the board is, when we do that, before we do that, do we send a courtesy email like, hey, this is what I'm going to put? Not for approval. We're still putting our name to it. Or does it not matter? Does anyone care? Does anyone not care? Maybe we don't need to do anything.
Well, my personal opinion is I've never been concerned about any posting from you or the town administrator, and actually other departments, as you know, post on it. But I think this goes back, if I'm reading this correctly, it goes back to those statements that I've been reading at our regular meetings that I was not providing the board members, my colleagues, copies of before I read them. And after I read them, I would then post it on our site. So you and Mrs. Goulart, for example,
Yep.
would hear me read them,
Yeah.
really didn't have any input on it, any say on it, and then I would post it, and I posted it, at least the two first ones, as the Board of Selectmen. So I didn't want to just identify myself as the writer. I wanted to, I talked about Mother's Day, the first responders, and I kind of thought that in general that we all agreed to those kind of thoughts and statements. What I didn't do was provide you with copy, and I'm a big fan of that. We should have everything that's going to be read at a meeting in our hand before the meeting. So it's in our packet, we get to look at it. And quite frankly, I failed to do that. One of the reasons, and it's not a good reason, but one of the reasons I did that was because I would not find out the number of, for example, the number of cases since January 1st of COVID-19 cases in Dayton until 4 o'clock that evening on Wednesday. So I would punch that number in, and then I would read it at 6. But then I would post that. The last one I posted, as I think I shared in an email with no discussion, was I signed it myself. As I think you signed yesterday's, for example, the red alert thing, as you saw, Dr. Z.
It's not,
So,
I just want to be clear, Mr. Chairman, it's not
Yeah.
about you. My concern is we have one board member who's not on Facebook, who doesn't have the ability to see those things. And I just want to make sure that we're being courteous. Nothing we post, in my personal opinion, is controversial. We're not posting really our opinions on anything, but I just want to know what everyone thinks, because it is there, and we have one member who is not able to see those things that are being posted. So it's not that they're controversial. It's not that anyone was offended. It's just extending a courtesy.
Now I understand, because sometimes people will ask me questions and I look at them and say, I don't know
You
what you're
didn't even
talking
know
about.
it was there. I know.
So what I would say is, on the towns, anything related to the town of Dayton, if something's going to be posted, whether it's Facebook or whatever else you use, the town website, if it's read at a selectmen's meeting and we have copies of it, I don't have a problem with it. If something has to be announced immediately, when you're preparing that posting, let's assume Brett, somebody says, Brett, you got to get this on there right away. You send copies to Mr. Pacheco and Mrs. Aaronstein and me and say, I've been requested by the board of whatever, or the something or other committee to immediately post this. And it's, you know, it's relevant and it needs to be out there. I don't have a problem with that, as long as we get the copy. If there's going to be a posting from the Board of Selectmen, then obviously I think we should all have it in advance and it gets posted. That would be my only concern, so that at least if somebody asks me about it, I don't look at them and say, I don't know what you're talking about. And they say, it's from the Board of Selectmen. So that would be my only point.
So let me give you a couple of examples then. A couple of weeks ago, some of us, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Rehoboth, and myself handed out signs to the seniors. I took a picture and I posted it on our Facebook page. Are you saying that I should have shared that? You know, as an example, that should have been shared with Mrs. Goulart and yourself before I posted it. And the same thing happened when we were all at Bristol Aggie.
Mm-hmm.
I took some pictures of us at Bristol Aggie signing the beam. I posted those pictures. I made a little comment about it, who was in the pictures. Should that have been sent to all the, our colleagues before it was posted? Because I think that's going to be a little tedious. I do agree with Mrs. Goulart that if something, number one, you should be given a copy of it prior to a meeting. And if it's read at the meeting and it's then posted, we don't need to run it by anybody else. Like, I just wonder if we're are we really complicating this?
Mr.
Maybe.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
my thought
maybe.
is,
Yes.
in those two instances, if you just sent an email, said, hey, I got some great pictures from the Aggie School beam signing, and I want to post them. If you'd like to have copies, let me know. So that if I wanted, so you told me what you're going to do, and if I wanted some pictures, I'd get in touch with you. About the signs, I had no idea what that was about until I saw the sign at Town Hall. So in that case, I was supposed to go to that meeting, but my husband had a medical appointment that came up.
Right.
So if before it got posted, or if you went to the ceremony and you just sent an email that said, hey, I was at the signing ceremony and we're going to post signs around town, congratulating, recognizing the seniors. And I said, oh, okay, I would have no objection. It's just that, again, some people said to me, why are those green signs all around? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I came to Town Hall and saw one, and I realized what it was about. So email to me is fine.
I guess I just want to be clear to my colleagues. I created the Town of Dayton Facebook page back in 2017. In all fairness, this was probably a conversation that we should have had back then, but it's not a conversation that we had. And so when the statements, when we had that discussion about giving them to us before the meeting, that's what raised this. Because it really is something back 3 years ago that we should have talked about. We did not, though.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't a member, but I agree. You guys should have talked about it.
We won't hold that against.
We have a policy relative that breaks down the rules, and it breaks it into personal use versus business use.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the line is, if you are using words that in some way reflect a stance, a position, or are
political,
not factual. Yeah, well, not factual. Expressing some sort of like
opinion,
thing like that, opinion. Like for your example, Selectman Pacheco, I wouldn't say, and I'm not a board member, so I don't count here, but I wouldn't say that anything that you posted about the signs was controversial or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But I think words, like typing up words, because it's colloquial and you're writing a sentence and you want it to sound good and all of these things come into play, that the words might end up reflecting something that's more opinion-based than fact-based. So we just have to be careful with that. And so you can't use the Town of Dayton pages. This is for all departments, little refresher for anybody who operates a Town of Dayton Facebook page. You have to just be very careful and post as like this building. Just post like you're a building, you're an inanimate object, you share facts. This is when our meeting is and this is how you sign on. And then like, hey, look at this great thing that the police are up to, or hey, look at this great thing that the historical commission is doing. Something like that, positive, feel good. But once you are starting to assign a person to the Town of Dayton accounts, that's when you leap into the gray. And so that's when you have to be extra, extra careful and just provide facts. So it is difficult. And this is actually something that a lot of managers discuss about the pitfalls that social media provides on a variety of levels. Because the legislature is just not caught up with how people are getting their news. And so it does provide some issues. And so you're not alone.
I think that that's a pretty good standard to have in terms of if you post something to social media, notify the board. If it's what would you say? What I will say is in the 3 years we've had it, I've never seen an opinion on the Town of Dayton Facebook. Like no one has ever said, and Ken, this goes back, pre-Ken, 2017. Nobody ever was expressing an opinion. Selectman Taylor did not use that. He probably had access. He never posted on it. It's really just at that time was me and Mallory, our town administrator. So do you think we're good to just keep going as we are?
Yeah, all I want is an email so that if somebody asks me something like, what are those signs about? I will not stare at them.
No worries.
No.
Oh, may I make a statement about, I needed to tell you guys something that's related to those senior signs.
Can we finish up on this conversation here first? And clearly you'll be given that opportunity to say so. So for example, this past Sunday was Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody posted Happy Mother's Day on our website. It wasn't me.
It was.
Yeah. What? But should that have been run by, seriously, should that have been run by the Board of Selectmen? I don't think so. It is giving an opinion in one sense, right? You're asking people to, have a happy Mother's Day. But why would that have to be run by, say I posted that. I would have to run it by my colleagues. I'd have to send an email. I'd say,
No,
I think
that's
if you
like
said
saying
Happy
Merry
Mother's
Christmas
Day,
and Happy New Year.
Chairman
No,
Pacheco,
that,
it
you
would
don't
be
need permission for that.
right. Like I think if you said Happy Mother's Day, dash Chairman Pacheco, that's when it is. Even so, I haven't seen anything egregious. I monitor that page and use it myself to help get notices out. I haven't seen anything that has been like a huge red flag. I mean, if you just have to be, if you're signing off as the Board of Selectmen, I think that's the standard. If you're signing off the Board of Selectmen, the other two get a heads up. And then if you're signing by yourself, it should be your own page.
I just think I'm not going to sign at all anymore. I'm just
yeah, but that's my point. If you don't sign it, period. So do we have to run it by everybody? I agree with Mrs. Goulart. Unfortunately, she's not on Facebook. If you want, Mrs. Goulart, I can set up a Facebook page for you.
Oh,
no, she had one.
no, I didn't. That was managed by Chris. I
Yes.
never posted directly to it. So
Yes.
when he took a break, I said, fine.
Yeah. Believe me, there's a lot of good not to be on social media. Believe me. So I respect your opinion on not being on Facebook. But the senior signs, for example, we were all sent an email. In fact, I think I got the email and I forwarded it to everybody. I agree with Mrs. Goulart. It was unclear as to what was going to happen at the school. And I talked to Scott, and then I went there and I got a clarification as to what was going to happen. And then I asked for 2 signs, one for my house and one to put in front of the town hall. Maybe I should have got it for other members of the select board too. I didn't think of that, quite frankly. So I do feel bad for Mrs. Goulart in the sense that she was unaware of it, and we should always be aware of what's going on when one of us is doing something. The Bristol Aggie situation, I thought everybody saw me taking pictures. I probably should have asked if, or mentioned it then, that do you mind if I post these pictures on the website? They weren't controversial. If I don't think Mrs. Goulart got to see the pictures, but Dr. Z, you probably got to see the pictures. There was a picture of you, Mrs. Goulart, in that too, but I didn't run that by you. So I'm not sure how you want to leave this. For example, you posted about,
As I said,
what was that?
both you and Dr. Z and Mrs. Aaronstein, if there is something that's going to, let's assume it's the Aggie School pictures. So if I just got an email that said, hey, I got pictures of the Aggie School ceremony, I'm going to post them on our Facebook page. Let me know if you want to see them, or you want to look at copies, or you emailed them to me. That is fine. I certainly don't object to any of that. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. You know, you don't, my opinion is you don't need permission to do it. But if you just say to Dr. Z, you're going to post them, and then he might go to the site and look at them. And in my case, I might say, hey, can you forward the pictures to me? I'd like to see them. But other than that, I wouldn't have said, don't do it or anything else. No, that's fine. But about the green signs, are there any left? Because I'd like to put one on my lawn. And when I was driving through Rehoboth, there's a whole bunch of them on Red Plain. I was almost tempted to take one, but there was a police detail there, and I didn't want pictures of me on Facebook.
Hitting the Rehoboth reporter.
Well, the other thing is, this is a little off subject, but the other thing is that in Rehoboth, they have a banner going across the road saying the same thing that's on the sign. And I think it costs $480. I think they may have fundraised for that. I thought it'd be something nice that the town of Dayton could do and put up maybe at the town hall, you know, across the road at the town hall. But that would also be, I'm going off on a different subject, but that was something that was brought to my attention.
Mm-hmm.
But it would cost $480. We're in a financial crisis here. If there's some way to fundraise for that. But
I have an update on that if you want it.
Oh yes, I would.
Yeah, and then let's so I'll give you the update, and then we can decide or not decide. Update. Doug Kelly reached out to me about putting a banner on Somerset Ave near Town Hall. What they ended up deciding, I believe, so they did do the fundraising. They got the money. They ordered the banner, and I believe it's going to be put there tomorrow with the help of Highway Superintendent Ferry. But I think they're doing it on the lawn. Like, I don't think, my impression is they're not hanging it anymore. So that's the update on that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I believe.
Town hall lawn?
I could be wrong, because this was all, you know, it was text message and things can get miscommunicated. But I think they said that they decided, for whatever reason, not to hang it on over the street, but to hang it in front of Town Hall somewhere, maybe on that barrier. I don't know. They'll figure it out tomorrow with Mr. Ferry.
While we're
I
talking,
give you, Madam Administrator, I don't.
banners and hanging things, are we going to have flags for Memorial Day? Do we know?
He does, I think.
Okay.
We have to be careful Memorial Day. I'm envisioning that people are going to want to support, so they're going to want to go out and be with him, and I get that, but we really can't have all those people. So
Okay.
I get worried about that.
That's my second question. So Mr. Ferry, because we left it up to Mr. Ferry about putting up flags and taking down flags. So it would be the flags that we had displayed like last year. Okay. My other question is, I had asked Mr. Hershey, what's going to happen for Memorial Day, even if it's just a couple of us or the Board of Selectmen and the Veterans Agent doing something appropriate at Veterans Park. I think he said it was on Facebook. Has anybody seen anything? Because I don't know what's going to happen Memorial Day.
Oh, yes. I don't have it. So, Chairman Pacheco, you probably read it too. Jessica Hershey posted in that Mr. Hershey and his grandson have been practicing. They are still anticipating doing some sort of ceremony on Memorial Day, and that was the last update that I saw.
I know that Mr. Hershey said we won't have the procession from the Lions Pavilion like we had planned, but I believe he and maybe his grandson, something about drums, they would have
Yes.
cadence.
Yeah, they were practicing.
I believe the Board of Selectmen would be part of this, I'll call it
Ceremony.
but it's not going to be anything like the past. But we're not going to let the holiday go by without some
Right.
kind of appropriate recognition.
I think that's still in the works as the last that I haven't heard it was canceled or anything.
Same,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
what Selectman Goulart's describing is what I believe to be what's happening.
Okay, so if anybody gets details, we need to share them so we all know
Yep.
what's
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
So going back, Mr. Chairman, to what we were discussing before, Madam Administrator, so really, we have no issue. We're good. Selectman Goulart, going forward, if I go to an event and plan to post it to the town of Dayton, which by the way, I want to say we do all the time. I love that. People love that. People love that events are attended and we post the pictures from them. I will send them to you as a courtesy for your records, okay?
Well, no, just tell me you went and you got pictures, say you want any pictures, because that'll
Okay.
save
I
you,
will.
you know, I might say, oh, you got a
We'll
group,
save your
picture?
mailbox some
Yeah.
space too.
Whatever, okay.
Okay,
So,
sounds good.
okay, yes, so my question is then, so I don't know how often either of you check your email, so I go there, I hand out the signs, I wanted to go on Facebook that day.
Yep.
I agree with you, Dr. Z. I'll notify Mrs. Goulart and you. Oh, I noticed that, my hands are
You don't
always
have to
going like,
notify me. I check it.
okay, so Mrs. Goulart she isn't on Facebook, so I get that. So I notify her, but do I have to wait for a response from her to post it? I'm notifying her.
No,
Okay, that's,
She's aware.
I'm fine with that then.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I just want everyone to be clear. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of information and what we're giving other people in town, and that we're just extending a courtesy to a member who is like not present on the platform like we are. That's all.
right, and I appreciate that, and as long as you send it, I pretty much check email several times a day, maybe not on the weekends always, but the fact of the matter is, as long as you send it, I'm going to see it sometime, and it's up to me. It's like checking voicemail. If somebody says, I've been trying to reach you and I left voicemail and I don't even bother checking the red blinking light, that's my responsibility. So no, you can, like I say, send the email and do your posting thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we need to actually do anything.
No,
Okay, so just for further clarification, so Brett, Dr. C, you posted yesterday on the red alert. I don't feel I need to get notified of that. I mean, that's a thing that was mailed out to us, and
Yeah.
just a further
It's
way of letting the public know about that. So I'm not interested in getting that.
okay. You
So I
should-
think we're.
You don't want me to
I
flood
think we're
your
kind of.
nonsense?
I think we're kind of all on the same page. So
All right.
can we move along?
Yep.
I would like this meeting to get over by 10.
Yeah, please. 9.
Me too.
okay, Mr. Swartz.
Yeah. Okay. So let's vote to approve the schedule of fees for the animal adoptions.
This
We were
has
given a copy of. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to let you know that the police chief did see and approve of this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we were given some animal shelter adoption fees. For dogs, it'd be $200. For cats, it'd be $150. For exotics, it'd be $50. And for farm animals, it would be $150. And this is because it's a cost for the town. It's my understanding. It's a cost for the town. I think we have to spade them or neuter them. Is that correct? Before they can be adopted?
That is,
And maybe some vaccinations and stuff like that. So I'm okay with these figures. I don't know. I'll listen to my colleagues.
this
What's
is
an
some,
exotic?
oh, I'm sorry.
Like a parrot or a, it's sort of a catch-all, a snake. Those kinds of.
Like a non-domesticated
Just
animal
a-
that's not a farm animal?
Well, it would be, I'll call them pets that don't fit into the category of dogs and cats and farm animals.
All right.
There's some kind of a pet, could be reptile, could be a bird, or whatever. So now, farm animals would include the pig that they had up there.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay,
So
And he
would
was-
farm animals also include, for example, I had a rooster. Could I have dropped that down at the shelter and
When you
someone would
couldn't
have to pay
find a
150?
to take it.
I think he was.
Just so everybody knows, it has passed away, so I won't be doing this. But if somebody drops, people don't like roosters. I'm not sure if they accept them at the animal shelter, but is that something that they would take?
I'm
I
thinking,
don't think so.
I think we should further clarify farm animals, because if it's a little critter, like well, maybe it's a couple of chickens, I don't know. But if it's small, you're not going to charge $150. By the same token, if it's a goat or a pig or a calf or something, then
pig
I
was-
think 150 is probably appropriate.
The pig became quite expensive. He had like some surgeries and he was a bit of a financial burden.
Oh, can I ask a question too about these fees? These to
Yep.
me, and this is anyone who might have more knowledge on this, these fees are one-time fees, correct?
Yes.
What
So,
if the animal ends up staying there for, and then how does that work?
You mean the animal's not adopted?
Yeah.
It's ours.
It's our,
So,
it's our
yeah, so
mascot.
is there not flexibility for the animal control officer to assess like an additional, is that
Oh,
not?
like if they were there for longer? No, I
You're
no.
trying
I
to
think the
promote
fee is the fee.
adoption. You're trying to promote adoption. Now, by the same token, if you find out who owns that animal and you say to them, by the way, we've got your, whatever the critter is here, I don't want it. I would suggest that the animal control officer say to that individual, it's been kenneled at the town's expense for X days. Now, they can refuse to pay it, and we can't ask the adoptee to pay it. I'm just saying that if somebody surrenders an animal, I can't take care of it anymore, then we take it in at our expense and adopt it out as best we can. But I don't think we can.
No, we can't. I'm sorry. I was conflating two things. I'm conflating like a lost pet with a pet who doesn't have an owner, like who could pay the additional fees if the animal hasn't been adopted yet.
We
So
can be a pet that somebody claims. We can ask them to reimburse us for expenses, including if the animal was sick and we provided veterinary care. We can ask them for that and hope that they would pay something, if not all of it, and they take their pet back. But if they surrender it, say, I can't deal with it, I think we got to take the animal in. and
Yeah.
try to
Oh,
get-
absolutely. Hmm.
But I think we ought to ask Stacy to give us farm animals. Maybe there needs to be a distinction between farm animals, meaning, I don't
Yeah,
know.
most of
critters as opposed
Do
to,
it by weight.
so most
Do it
of
by
them
weight,
are going to
large
be
and small.
most of them are going to be large, and you're not going to be able to keep them at the shelter. Like we can't keep a
Yeah.
horse at a shelter or a
cow, I'm
donkey at a
thinking.
shelter.
We had cows that got out.
Yeah, so I feel like the fee is appropriate. So Stacy derived these. She reached out to area shelters. She put this together. This was from her. I kind of like the idea of a deterrent. Like I have a chicken and I don't want to pay $150 to give it up. I'm just going to go find one of the other chicken people in town. We've got a lot of them, and maybe they'll take my chicken in.
Look what happened to
or
our chairman.
Bristol
He
Aggie.
died. He
What's
couldn't
that?
find anyone.
the reason I asked about,
The rooster, I know. So I think that it's appropriate because generally the costs related to a farm animal are going to exceed the 150. And I also just want to say, for the public's benefit, really, that Stacy does have quite a network and is able to adopt out these animals. And she did a really yeoman's work about the pig. I call him Houdini. I don't know what his real name is. I don't know what they named him, but she did really a lot of work for him. So she does have a network. She does find a way.
The reason I mentioned specifically whether it's chickens or any kind of a poultry type thing, I don't believe I don't believe Dr. Z was on the board. This town actually went to court and fought about Muscovy ducks, and
Yeah.
it went to trial, and the court pretty much, I'll say, found for the town of Dayton, but informed the owner of these multi ducks that were terrorizing the neighborhood and messing up the whole neighborhood, that she had to dispose of them. Now, Mrs. Ferry worked with her, and they found a farm in Rehoboth that was willing to take them. But I'm talking about a lot of ducks that were a real problem. But again, it's not something you can adopt out at $150 a piece. We were lucky somebody took them.
I'm okay with the fees, and I think if we get into that situation where it's, say, for example, it's a rooster, whatever, I'd be okay with Stacy coming before the board and we make an exception. But the odds are somebody's not going to drop off a rooster or a chicken or something like that. They're going to find somebody. It's very difficult to get rid of a rooster, believe me. I've had to get rid of roosters, and I had one that I couldn't get rid of. They usually go for soup, to be quite frank. They don't become a pet. And you understand that when you give it to somebody, but somebody's not going to pay $150 for a rooster for soup. So I think we ought to. It's a farmer community. It's a right to farm community.
Like, I'm just like, this is what I'm imagining. Like, it's just in my mind.
Well, actually, we know that Chairman Pacheco is without his farm animal. Anyone's got a rooster, we know where there's a vacancy.
They'll be dropping them off. They'll be dropping them off.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve the animal adoption fees as submitted by the animal control officer.
Second.
Okay. I think we've discussed this. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstention? The ayes have it. The next item is to go over the schedule for the next 6 months. I did originally have plans to go to Italy in September, which would have impacted this schedule. However, that's been changed. So I'm okay with the schedule as is. And we can amend it at any time if something happens that somebody can't make a meeting. We can always adjust the schedule. But I'm okay with the schedule. I'd be interested to hear what my colleagues say on this.
I agree. I'm looking to go somewhere, anywhere, anytime, but at the current time, we can't. So I'm willing to go along with this. And as you said, there'll be some flexibility. That's fine.
Can I just draw your attention to September? That was the date that did accommodate. Do you want to keep it like how it is, Selectman Pacheco, or do you want to go back to second and fourth?
We should go back to the second and fourth Wednesday, because we're definitely not going.
Okay, so that would be September, the September 16th would now be September 23rd.
Yeah.
One
We're
second.
talking the 9th and the 23rd?
Yes.
Yes.
So we had divided, Chairman Pacheco had actually told me about this a while ago, so that we wouldn't book a meeting on his trip. So we created this with that in mind.
Yeah.
In case.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the schedule for Board of Selectmen's meetings from July 8th through December 16th with one change, and that the second September meeting be September 23rd.
Second.
There a second? Any discussion? Hopefully, all these meetings won't be Zoom meetings, but they may. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. The next item is to approve the surge contracts, DPW supplier paper. We have a copy of those fees. Now, I believe Tom Ferry said that there's been an increase in these prices, or somebody said it was an increase in the prices.
I did.
It's out of our hands, quite frankly.
The
Any questions?
DPW
Yes.
supplies, I'm sorry, the DPW supplies went up significantly, higher than I was really happy with. But paper, it was a bit of a mixed bag. We can live with it. We only get one bid for paper all the time, even though we send it out to 7. She sent it out to 7 companies. We only got paper for 1. WB Mason is just a powerhouse, and other companies really are hard pressed to beat them, so they kind of give up. Anyway, but these are our prices, and it is what it is. I'm still, Tom Ferry said to me, and I agree with him, we're still in a better spot with Sursage than we would be on our own.
So the prices listed on this summary sheet, that's what we're actually approving.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the bids for Highway Department supplies for all of the items listed as presented and as solicited from Sursage.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we award the contract to supply paper to WB Mason as presented as part of the Sursage group.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Is that all of the items, I believe?
Correct. For Sursage, yes.
Don't open the
Yes,
door.
the next-
Chairman.
Hey,
Move
we're
right
on-
along.
So the next item is the EMS week proclamation, and I'm going to ask our clerk to read that, if you don't mind.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Nope.
You have it? Yeah.
I'll read it. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week, now, therefore, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the May 23rd, 2020 as Emergency Medical Services Week, EMS strong, ready today, preparing for tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue the Emergency Medical Services Week proclamation as read.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Discuss the increase in cleaning services. Madam Administrator has provided us with several options as far as cleaning services and how often we would like to have it done and how much it would cost. I'd be interested in hearing from my colleagues as to how much, how often we want to have it cleaned. Presently, am I correct? We do it once a week. That
That is correct.
Clean
It's
what?
every Thursday. So the total amount would be increasing by 3, and that's the last item here.
Yes.
Just to explain what the one time means. That means doubling it up.
Can I ask a question, Madam Administrator?
Of course, every time. Yep.
Are we at the question portion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we are.
So if they were to do it 3 times a week, like that's kind of what I'm leaning towards personally, because I know that this won't be something they do in perpetuity. This will be something that they do for the next, couple months, and then we can decide if we want to extend it again. When they do it 3 times a week, and I'm asking you this because I don't know if you've had a conversation with them, I'm assuming they would do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the employees come in on Monday, everything is sparkling clean and sanitary, and then the cleaning happens the following day. So things are always clean, is that?
Well,
what
on
they said they
Tuesday
were going to do?
morning, you would have had people in on Monday all day, and things are happening on Tuesday. Like,
Do they have the flexibility? Can I ask the question a different way? Do they have the flexibility to decide what days the cleaning will occur?
we usually say what the days are.
Okay,
They
so that's
already
part of the
do-
combo. Okay.
Like, he's in town just about every day because he does the police station 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that he's in town those days, and he ends up doing Old Town Hall on Fridays
Okay.
because it works better in his schedule.
Yep.
But I know that he's available to do it.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we authorize additional 3 times per week cleaning at the additional cost of $1,275 a month for a period to be determined by the town administrator, which means start it as soon as you can, and you determine, Mrs. Aaronstein, when it's time to either reduce it or go back to a regular schedule.
Okay, so
I
that was
like that.
4 days a week cleaning.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I like that. Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Selectmen's report. I know that, Mrs. Goulart, you gave us at the Finance Committee meeting somewhat of this report, but for the purpose of, to help the public, if you want to give that report on the budget update, that we help with budget update.
Yeah, quite frankly, our advisory committee has not met simply because of conflicts. However, Mr. Schwartz did attend the meeting, the budget hearing meeting, and based on what Mr. Schwartz reported last night, I believe we're looking at a total education budget, and this includes everybody. Well, DR operating in capital is 10,805,000. Then we have to add on the Aggie School of 35,000 and $821,280. The amount that has been requested by the regional school district is a higher number. And I think with all of the education that I mentioned added together, we're looking at somewhere around 11,661,000, give or take. Mr. Schwartz had said that he had let the superintendent and school committee chairperson know that what he felt the town of Dayton could afford would be the number that we actually appropriated for FY20. And then we know there was a reduction on the Dayton side because of the state setting the total budget. So that was the discussion last night. And I don't know what happened at the school committee meeting last night. If the school committee has decided to take a look at the numbers again and see if there's a possible reduction across the board that would bring our number more in line with what was recommended. I don't believe the town of Rehoboth has acted on a number relative to the total capital and operating budget for the regional district. So I guess we're waiting to find out what happened at the school committee meeting.
I do know that Tom O'Connor became the chairperson of the school committee, so that's nice.
Oh, really?
And-
Last night?
Yes,
Oh, nice.
last night.
Yeah, that's
And
fabulous.
I believe, and Mr. Chapman is the vice chair,
Nice.
so,
Did they, do you have any, I'm sorry, do you have any,
no,
did they decide
That's-
anything last night? Besides
that's all I know.
Okay.
That's
Oh, yeah,
all-
because we had a meeting. I'm sorry, we had a
We-
meeting too. Yeah,
And we had a meeting till 10 o'clock.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
You
it
forget
was
that.
8 o'clock.
I
Yeah,
actually have a
my-
very, oh, sorry, Mr. Chin.
No, my understanding is that Rehoboth is not going to be voting on, they're not going to vote until the 30th, I think, because they're hoping to see some information from the state
Yeah.
regarding the school budget. So I suspect that Desi is going to come up with the budget, quite frankly. So
I'm
we'll
okay
see
with
what
that.
happens.
Okay.
Dr. Z, yeah.
I don't think the town of Rehoboth is in any better financial condition than the town of Dayton. And I think that whatever the total budget was that the school department, school district approved is going to be too high for them too. So I think we're going to see some kind of a reduction
Yes.
in the total, which means we may end up where we want to be. But anyhow, Dr. Z had asked me for some other information about how Dayton got through the dilemma we had back in the 2009 time period. And I think you got in your package a copy of the statement from the Board of Selectmen dated June the 1st, explaining the situation we were in at the time.
Yes.
I know I have a copy.
Okay, and you also got a copy of the actual special town meeting warrant on June the 1st, 2009, where in the memo, I mentioned the $85,000 reduction in state aid.
Mhm.
And then if you look at the first page, going on to the top of the second page, once the town meeting approves department budgets, the only way they can be changed is if the town meeting then votes to reduce every single budget that you are cutting in order to reach the number. So what you see on Article 4, at the bottom of that special town meeting warrant, all those numbers that are reductions, going to the top of the next page, they total $85,000.
Mhm.
So we actually had to have the townspeople vote to make these reductions, which offset the $85,000 reduction in aid. We had never had to do that before, and I hope we never have to do it again. But that's the process that
Okay.
we faced, and that was one of the procedures we had to go through in order to make sure we didn't end up with a deficit.
So my question is, did you dictate to each department what the reduction was going to be, or did you conference it with them and see
Okay.
where they could cut some of the expenses?
When we got the notification from the state that they were not going to send us the final $85,000, which was February of 2009, and this was for FY 2009. So you've already gotten more than halfway through the fiscal year, and somebody says, "Oh, by the way, we're not giving you the money." So, the Board of Selectmen sent out a notice, and I think we did it at a department head meeting, telling all the department heads the bad news. And first we said, would everybody look at their budgets and tell us, is there any money in there you can give us towards the $85,000 reduction? So as you see, we have various departments, so forth and so on. After we got all that information, we still did not have enough money. So we went back, Tom Pyers and I went through the most recent financial statement, which probably was the end of January 2009. And when we saw there were unexpended balances, and it looked like, well, they can probably get through the year because they won't have to spend this, or we had a freeze, just like Mrs. Aaronstein talked about for where we are now. So once we saw that, we met with individual departments and said, we noticed that you have X dollars in a certain area. Our recommendation is that you agree to, in effect, freeze that money and agree that it becomes part of the 85,000. We did that with every department. In I can tell you, in Mr. Ferry's case, Highway Department, because he was superintendent, he had it seems to me somebody either took a job somewhere but he had a vacancy, and we never did fill that vacancy. It was 2.5 years later, I think, that we finally filled it. So,
when we came out of the little recession.
you see
Hey, you
personnel,
do what you got to do. I totally understand.
personnel 20,000, and you see, well, expenses. That was obviously supplies.
Mhm.
We looked at our trash contract, whatever. We even, as you can see, Council on Aging, small amounts. And that's how we worked it all out. And that's how we got to 85.
Well, if I may, so first of all, I really want to thank you for putting this together for us. And the reason that I asked you to provide this for us, Selectman Goulart, was because I'm just thinking down the road, if those tough conversations need to happen, it's already been done before. There was a board in town who has been through it. It might be a little bit worse now, might be a little bit better. I don't know. I think there is a lot of uncertainty, but I think it's instructive for me as a selectman who's been here just about a little over 4 years. What are our options if things get dire? So I appreciate that. I hope we don't have to do it. I think we all agree on that. But there's a model in place for how to have those conversations and how to make those cuts and how to work with the departments on it.
And I will say that, first of all, I was happy I found these old warrants. I don't even know why I still had this, but I've been cleaning out and getting rid of junk, and obviously this was in the junk pile. But we also worked, the Board of Selectmen, who was the Board of Health, also worked very closely with the town accountant. And if you notice, the one department, the biggie we didn't touch, was the school department.
Mm-hmm.
So we really had to wring the money out of the budgets, but our people came through. Our department heads, we made it. And the other thing we have to remember is, if it ever happens again, just coming up with the departments that you are going to cut doesn't end the problem. You must go to town meeting. And somebody says, what happens if they don't vote to make all these cuts? I says, we got to get advice on what we do next before June 30th. But thank goodness it worked.
Yeah, I suspect there's never going to be a problem in reducing the expenses for the town, that the townspeople are going to agree to reduce it. But thank you, Dr. Z, for asking the question, and thank you, Mrs. Goulart, for answering the question. It's been helpful for me anyway. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
May I had just two quick mentions. I don't actually have a report. So two things. I know amidst the pandemic, we have all been sort of focused on that, but business has not stopped, as Selectman Goulart has alluded to. She's been working on the Budget Advisory Committee for the school district. Chairman Pacheco, Historical Commission, Briggs stuff, ADA compliance. So everyone's been rocking and rolling. Things have not stopped for people that are watching. Three things. First, the town administrator and I, she has made immense progress on the business guide. We are in the editing process. We have sent it to different department heads. So she will be unveiling that hopefully soon under town administrator reports. Sewer extension, we have been rocking and rolling. We have been having conversations with the firm that's helping us that also did the sewer extension feasibility study. So there will be more to come on that. I think we had a meeting a week or two ago about that with Highway Superintendent Ferry. And the last thing is the Open Space Committee is having its remote meeting next week. So we will have more to come on the open space and recreation plan. So I just want to apprise you of that.
I did have an MMA meeting today, Mr. Chairman. I'll just do this very quickly. We had John Haidt from the Constitution Law Foundation. He talked about the ban on plastic, they were trying to eliminate plastic bags, those, well, we all know, we got those coming out of our ears again. They are not really fighting with the Department of Public Health, but according to Mr. Haidt, scientific evidence says that the chances of people getting the virus from plastic bags is minuscule. And I asked about why aren't we using the paper bags? And they said the chances of transmitting the virus from those paper bags is even less than plastic. So as soon as they can, the proponents of eliminating those one single-use bags, they're jumping on the bandwagon again, and they're going to be looking for that. And they also talked about the bottle bill is kind of on hold, and so that's that issue. There's something called the Smart Energy Program. The town of Hampton is allowed a solar farm on the town landfill. But because they can't, Hampton is a small community, because they can't use all of the power generated, they're losing a lot of money, and the company that owns the solar panels are selling it to the grid, and they're making money. So it sounds like their pilot agreement was not thought well out.
No.
And the other thing was Casey Bowers from the Environmental League of Massachusetts talked about asked MMA to support some legislation they're proposing for what they call the green budget. And my response was, no, I want to know what it's going to say if you want us to support it. And that's what my colleague said. So we're supposed to get a draft of this Greenworks budget bill. They mentioned the governor's S10, which is being held up. And, oh, just a quick question to everybody. For those of you who are either selectmen or have knowledge about tax collections in your community, other than the money that you've received from the mortgage companies and the banks that collect that money up front, what does your tax payments look like? And Wareham and Wilbraham said the tax collections for the non-mortgage paying people, I'll put it that way, is running 85 to 90%. The city of Marlborough is only looking at about 40%. So, you know, I don't know if that's a trend or not. About electric charging stations, Lexington installed 13. They got some grant money, and up until recently, the electricity was free for everybody. Now, Newton got some grant money and installed some, but they, obviously, you have to use the card, and they're collecting fees. But
Yeah.
so those are just some things that I know that.
Can I just piggyback off that just real quick?
Yeah.
So there's two types of grants you can get to put in charging stations. One, it sounds like Lexington got one. I think it's, I forget the exact name. I forget the now. I don't want to hack it up and get it wrong. But that grant, the stipulation is if you get the grant money to put in those electric charging stations through that program, you have to make them free for public use. What we did was use the Green Communities Fund, so we kind of got to do what we wanted to do on that. So they are, this is just for anyone watching. So they're different. People are paying for their own electricity with our charging stations, unless they're a town-owned vehicle and we don't have an electric one yet. So.
Oh, the other thing that was mentioned by Casey Bowers from the Environmental League of Massachusetts, I asked them what their position was on the proposed changes to the stretch energy code, and they said that they do support them. And they're supposed to be sending us some information about that also. Dr. Z, one question for you. I had forwarded an email about a workshop, a webinar that's coming up on the 20th, because I mentioned that Sue,
McBride,
no,
Medeiros.
not one of our locals. Because I said to you, so-and-so, and look at, oh, Sarah, not Sue, Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah from the Nature. Yeah, I couldn't go because I'm going to the MSA legislative webinar
Okay,
that day.
I was just gonna say it's on the 20th and I can't sit in because I've got a stormwater meeting. So I don't know if Chairman Pacheco would be interested in just sitting in and hearing what it's about, but the other one that Danica Warnes from the Audubon Society is doing, I've registered for that. We're not having her come to our stormwater meeting because we really want to focus on the recommendations we have to make to the zoning board relative to strawberry fields and stormwater regs. So I just mentioned that.
So that meeting that you, Mrs. Goulart, you said you can't attend, I had planned to register for the one that Dr. Z is going to attend.
Oh, okay.
Did you forward that information to me regarding the one that you cannot attend? Did you send that information to me?
I think I did to you and Brett and Mallory, but I'll do it again, not a problem.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
One last question. Is anyone going to the library virtual legislative day tomorrow?
What time was that? I saw that. What time is that?
11:30, I think. I have it in my phone as 11:30.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to
probably
have another work meeting, but I think it should be over by then. So I'll
Yeah.
report back at our next meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Speaking of tomorrow, I got an email. I'm going to be attending the Greater Attleboro Taunton Housing Consortium. We haven't had a meeting since, I don't know, last year. And they now have a new director because Kevin retired. And this is the meeting where we've got to act on all of the money that's coming from HUD so that they can fund the various programs like first-time home buyers. So at our next meeting, I'll just probably have a little blurb about what happens at that meeting.
Okay. Is that it for Selectmen's reports? If so, no correspondence, no acknowledgements. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for the Emergency Preparedness Committee meeting of March 16th. The joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the Emergency Preparedness meeting for March 23rd. The Selectmen's budget meeting of April 22nd, and separately review the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting of April 22nd, 2020.
If it's okay with the person making the motion, I don't feel comfortable voting on the emergency one just because I wasn't there, but I'll do the other one. So can we do them separately?
Well, it's just to accept the review.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
I actually was looking at that. I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, I can hear you.
I'm sorry.
No.
I was actually looking at that because you guys don't, that first one of Monday, March 16th, that was the original one where it was just Chairman Pacheco. So there's no Board of Selectmen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That shouldn't be there. And
No worries.
continue with the joint one. The joint one
Gotcha.
is you.
Okay, so it's March 23rd, April 22nd, budget meeting, April 22nd, the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'll entertain that motion to accept or review those meetings,
So moved.
minutes from those meetings.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting of March 18th and April 8th of 2020.
So moved.
Second,
Is there a second? Have those, Karen, this question's for you. Have those minutes been changed since we were given them?
Nope, there were no major changes to those.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Approval of the warrants.
Oh, okay, Mrs. Brady, when I picked up my stuff today, I brought home minutes I was supposed to sign, so I will get them back to you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Grabbed everything. Mr. Chairman, I move
Yes.
that the warrants dated April 29th, numbered as follows, be approved. 44A-20 in the amount of $96,500.60. 44B-20 in the amount of $25,677.10, both being payroll. Warrant 44C-20 in the amount of $381,812.73, and 44D-20 in the amount of $1,887.39, the last two being accounts payable, be approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that warrants dated May 6th, 2020, be approved. Warrant 45A-20 in the amount of $95,253.36 payroll. 45B-20 in the amount of $49,645.47 accounts payable, be approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. Warrants for May 13th.
That accounts payable warrant for 49,000 was so low, you're gonna get zonked when I read the last one tonight. Warrant dated, May 13th. Warrant number 40, I move that warrants dated May 13th, be approved as follows. Warrant 46A-20 in the amount of $99,360.97 payroll. 46B-20 in the amount of $188,961.18 accounts payable, and 46C-20 in the amount of $2,093,293 I have trouble with this. 2,000,000, that sticks in my throat.
Can't say a physical reaction.
Yes. Let me try this again. $2,093,210.22 accounts payable, DR assessment, be approved.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. Is there anything else?
Just to adjourn,
We're
Mr.
gonna-
Chairman.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, I thought he said we were going till 10 o'clock.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? The ayes have it. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Stay